Welcome back, everybody, to Scaled Success Reptile Podcast. I'm Alvaro, Clover's Reptiles. Good to meet you guys here tonight. Today we have a guest, and we're gonna bring him on after we do our normal get together here and update on what's going on in the Clover's Reptile world. So what is going on? Let me see. I'm trying to figure out. 2 weeks ago, so no show has happened. Last show was the Charlotte, North Carolina show, the All American Reptile and Plant Expo. So went there. Um, you know, Big shout out to those promoters for putting a well organized show together. So big shout out to those guys. Breeding season is over here. Um, Basically ramping up last couple feedings for brumation. So restart of breeding season again. It's pretty wild how fast that time frame goes. And us going into our third breeding season already. So that guys, when you're looking to breed hognose or any other species, the time goes by really fast, especially when you start growing up those animals. So we got that going on. We have plenty of animals on our Husbandry Pro store and our Morph Market. If you guys go through our Husbandry Pro store because they're a partner of ours, you guys can get some special discounts. And also, you use Clover 60 and get 6-day free trial with Husbandry Pro. What else is going on with us? I know, this weekend a lot of people are going to be in Tinley, so that's going to be a really, good show. I've never been to Tinley, was going to try to make it, but just couldn't pull it off. And what's going on with right now with, the hurricane in Florida, because I'm in South Florida, it's, actually probably worked out for the best, that situation. And for anybody that's in, the path of the hurricane and stuff that, our minds are out with you guys, our, positive thoughts and stuff to you guys. If you guys need any help after the hurricane, we're here. We're in South Florida. And I'll tell everybody right now, we got a generator, we got some gas, we got water. So if anybody needs any help after, and we have any extras, message us on Instagram, and we'll help out. This is what the reptile community is for, to help each other out, especially here in Florida when we're going through a hard time like this. Hopefully anybody that is in the path, got their animals out safe, is hunkered down and is able to, stay safe within their animals if they can't move them out. So, like I said, that's going on with us. Trying to think what else. So we have now our podcast episodes are being streamed on Spotify, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio and stuff. So if you guys are into just the audio part of it, make sure to go check that out. And it's a couple weeks behind because I want you guys to tune in here to the YouTube channel. So if you're tuning in, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and in about a week or so, all the episodes will be up. So like I said, we got going on that. So go check us out in those platforms. And before we say hi to a couple people and stuff, let's give a quick shout out and video to our sponsors for this year.
I want to take this moment to mention and thank our sponsors and partnerships. Sea Serpents is our official sponsor, known for their exceptional customer service and top quality. They offer a wide range of PVC racks and incubators designed to meet the needs of every reptile enthusiast. Their products are built with durability and efficiency in mind, ensuring your reptiles have a safe and comfortable environment. Whether you're a hobbyist or a professional breeder, Sea Serpents has the perfect solution for your growing collection. Want to take your reptile husbandry and record keeping to the next level? Use our exclusive code CLOVER60 for a free 60-day trial of Husbandry Pro, an all-in-one reptile tracking software that will streamline your reptile care routine. When it comes to shipping or receiving our reptiles, Ship Your Reptiles is our top choice. Trust them to handle your reptiles with care. Use code CLOVERS15 to save on your next shipment. Feeding your reptiles a varied diet is essential, and Reptilinks offers raw, whole prey reptile food trusted by the best zoos and keepers in the industry. Use code CLOVER to save $5 on your next order. Thank you for your support.
All right, guys. So that was our sponsor, Sea Serpents, Chris. Big shout out to him. our sponsor here. You see behind us, we have Sea Serpent Rex, and any other partnerships that we have, we recommend it because we use it ourselves. So make sure you guys go check out any of the sponsors or partnerships that we have going on. Um, you know, so with the storm coming about, like I said, if you guys need any help, make sure to reach out to someone, if any, especially after the aftermath of whatever we're gonna get. You know, luckily I've got a couple messages and stuff like that, and to our followers and subscribers here, we're pretty good as of the forecast right now because we're so far south. Sometimes that can change, but as of right now, we're pretty good. Knock on wood. So let's say hi to a couple people in the chats, and we'll see. Joshua Fisher, what's going on? Thanks for joining in. Nixon Reptile, what's going on, bud? Thanks for joining in tonight. Villarino Reptiles, Big E, what's going on, bud? Thanks for joining in. TNA Snakes, Anthony, what's going on? Thanks for joining in tonight. Herp and Harbins, Alicia, how's it going, Alicia? Thanks for joining in. So we got a couple people, and we're gonna get the show started because I know Brian is getting ready for Tinley, so every minute counts right now and what's he's going on. So without further ado, everybody, let's bring on Brian. Welcome, Brian. How's it going?
Doing good, man. Doing good.
I hear that. Let's start off real quick. You're going to Tinley this week, right?
Yeah.
This weekend. What species are you taking?
Well, unfortunately, we found out we got extra space too late to get our permit for the hognose, so we can't take any hognose. But we'll have some Mexican pines. The Depageni, they came from, actually the parents came from Brandon Nixon. I talked about them. Cool. I picked them up last year at Tinley. We'll have some milk snakes, some Hondurans, some apricot pueblans, of course, really high in ball pythons. And the pyros are really cool. That's something that if you haven't seen them, you ought to check them out because they're, I kind of jokingly call them king snake tree boas because they're so skinny and slender, and they're just a really neat species of snake. And I think that's it. But we will have some next level ball pythons too.
Nice. Okay. Cool. So you guys heard it. If you're looking for certain species that Brian has and some high end ball pythons, he's gonna have some on his table. You got 2 tables, you were saying, right now?
Yeah. We found out Sunday morning. We got a second table, and hopefully, he said he's going to try to keep it permanent. We've been begging for one for years, and I'd like to be able to get permitted to take the hognose since we're trending more. Not totally away from ball pythons, but definitely more in that direction. Tinley's one of those shows that I would like to have a big setup, but just for the sheer value and profitability aspect of it, I mean, I can't not take ball pythons, so if I have one table, it's really hard to decide, like, I'm going to take 24 ball pythons and I'm not going to take 24 so I can display the hognose because, I mean, I was my own best customer this year. Everything that would be what I call Tinley worthy, the higher end stuff I kept, so, I mean, it's, most of the stuff that I have available are, there's some good project animals in there, but, it's not what I would like, not comparable to what I could put on the table with the ball pythons. But Sunday morning we found out because of a cancellation, we were able to pick up a second table, which and he said he was going to try to make it permanent. No promises, but that means we're at least up on the list.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, now Tinley's a great show. We have a lot of fun at Tinley every time we do it. It's the one time a year when we see everybody. I mean, you do some of these other shows that are big and you see some people at one and not at the other and everything. I mean, it's Tinley, you pretty much see everybody that, and talk to throughout the year that, it's only 2 times a year you see a lot of people. And it's just a really fun hangout. Love the setup. It's show's crazy. I mean, it's like leaving a sporting event and getting around the thing. But it's, it's just jam-packed full of people. It's the one show that I haven't noticed any drop-off at all in.
Yeah, man. Want to tell the viewers, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel, hit the like button. Brian's social media is down below as well, so you can go follow him on social media. If you guys have any specific questions for Brian or I, make sure to drop a super chat. And if you're watching the replay, drop a super thanks, support for the channel. Brian, before we get into the conversion and the dipping your feet into the colubrid world, let's bring it back to like where you started with this whole reptile journey.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not probably not unlike a lot of people's story. I mean, when I was a kid, I mean, my earliest memories involve snakes. I mean, and I grew up on a farm. We had a lot of snakes around, and I was always stashing stuff in my pocket. And I've said this probably on every podcast anybody's ever seen me on, but my grandmother always made me turn my pockets inside out before I could
Mm,
come in the house because she never knew what I was going to have.
yeah.
But it started with that, and then as I got older and moved out on my own, where I could have what I wanted. I mean, I had a little bit of everything. This would have been like the late 1980s. Then one of the guys that I knew just in the community had a shop that he wanted to start doing wholesale to pet stores. So I kind of came on as a working partner, and I would run the route through 4 or 5 states. Man, we just load up tubs and bags with all kinds of stuff and go to the mom and pop pet stores and sell the animals to them.
Mm,
And through that I was able to have a lot of species like along like the red tail green rats and amethystine pythons, and we had a little bit of everything, but it was all imported back then, so it was a lot of work to get it established and get it healthy before we would sell it. And then the first time I bred anything was in 1990. I bred just a pair of black and white California king snakes. And, I got the bug then. And, I did it off and on with different colubrids, milks, and kings mainly. And then, I met my second wife, my current wife. And, I kind of went to work, corporate America, building a career, building a family, that kind of thing. And, I got down to where we just had some pets, and I didn't breed for a long time. And as the time in the car business kind of started to, wear on me a little bit,
mm-hmm.
the, I wanted to do something that would set me up to have something to do when I retired that would also generate some income.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2016, I discovered Morph Market, and I started looking, and I'm like, holy cow, my son had been wanting another ball python. He's got one that's 16 years old. And, now he wanted another one. So we got him one, and we went over to a breeder's house, and, it was just like, holy cow, I mean, look at all this. And as I was walking out of the room, a snake crawled across the front of a clear tub, and I was like, man, what is that? And he said, that's a killer clown. I'm like, okay, like, it sounded crazy to me. I didn't
Yeah.
even know what that was because, we were unbagging ball pythons that had crazy genetics back then. We just didn't know what we were looking at. I mean, we just
Mm-hmm.
thought they just were maybe from a different region or, just an aberrant pattern like you see in a lot of colubrids. We didn't realize all that was genetic. If it did, I'd be in a much different position now than what I am. But but yeah, I ended up buying, started buying ball pythons in 2016. Started doing research. I made all the mistakes everybody makes. I just went based on what was pretty and what I liked, and what I thought would go well together. And none of that really worked out. But from 2018, 2019, when we first started producing snakes, that's when I started to develop a vision for where I wanted to go with this. And 2020 and 2021 really were kind of defining seasons for us. It was kind of like, holy cow. And, we made a pretty significant investment to start. So 2021 was that year where it kind of, we kind of broke out of that and kind of got in the black at that point. And from then, the collection's been sustaining itself as well as everything else we've added.
Yeah.
So,
So let me ask you, 2021 was your first year producing ball pythons?
no, it was the
No.
year we broke it. It was the year we broke even on our initial
Gotcha.
investments. The
Okay.
first year I produced ball pythons was 2018.
2018. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're already up and going once 2021, 2020, 2021 hit.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
yeah. How was that, from going 2018 to 2020, 2021 during the COVID time frame?
I mean, it was cool. It was, I, I was very self aware that this was not sustainable. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
it was one of those, get it while you can,
Yeah.
type
Yeah, for sure.
situations. And so, I think we made some smart pairings, for them. We got some good holdbacks out of it, but we also made some very marketable stuff. We were fortunate to have a couple of genes pop up in our collection that, you know, we didn't know we had, that, you know, made some pretty amazing animals that, you know, led to, you know, some really high dollar offspring. And, you know, as it went into 2022, 2023, those were both great years. And I mean, it has dropped off some on the lower end stuff, but yeah, I just haven't seen that on the higher end. I mean, we're seeing, you know, we're seeing prices come down, but that's, you know, that's always happened. You know, I mean, if you ask the
Yeah.
ball python guys that have done this for a long, long time, this happened in 2006, this happened in, you know, 2012, 2016. It always, you know, a lot of people get into this thinking it's just going to be easy.
Yeah,
And
it like any business, any like economy, it goes in phases, right? There's
oh
always
yeah,
ebbs and flows of that the process.
and it will happen with hognose too. I mean, there's no
Hmm.
question about it. I mean, with the number of people that are getting into hognose, there will become a time that the supply and the demand aren't going to be as slanted as they are right now.
Yeah.
And you know, and then ball pythons will come back around. You know, that's why, you know, I don't I'm at the point now where I want to work with what I want to work with. I don't pay as much attention to the value as much as I used to, because, you know, we've gotten, I mean, I'm older. I've worked a long time. My wife
Hmm.
worked a long time. You know, we're in a different place in life than what a lot of people are. So, you know, that gives us the luxury of being able to be a little bit more choosy and, you know, kind of work with what you think is cool as opposed to what's going to bring the most ROI from that particular tub, you know.
Yeah.
Take the bull snakes. I mean, they're probably my favorite snakes in the house. But I mean, I've got quintuple recessive het bull snakes that if I hit the five gene recessive, I've still only got $800 snake. You know, maybe
Yeah.
$1,000. I mean, you're not going to hit that 10, 15, $20,000 snake in the bulls,
Hmm.
no matter what. But they're still my favorite snake, and they would be the last to go. To be honest with you,
Hmm.
you know, I can't wait to start producing those next year. And then I'll have another trio coming up the following year. But
Hmm.
you know, the pits are some of my favorites. I mean, they just show out. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
and that's one of the things I like about the hognose. Plus the fact that my wife likes them, and you met Beth Ann in Dallas
Yep.
because we banded right together. And you know, she's not a snake person. We've been together 24 years. Been married 20, I guess 20. I don't know. She'd get mad if I no 23 years. And yeah, it took me a minute to do the math. It's been a long 2 days, brother. But it but yeah, I mean, she held her first snake at Spring Tinley 2 years ago, and I've had snakes every moment that we've been together. You know what I mean? Like, you know, and it just took a few beers at the auction, and yeah, I'd bought a BPI Xanthic Clown at the auction. It was sitting on the table. I went to the bar to get a couple more beers. I come back and she's holding the snake. I about fell out. I'm like, holy cow, you know?
That's cool.
And but when I got the hognose, she's like, I can dig these, you know.
Yeah.
And we got our first hognose in 2021.
Hmm.
You know, we had met, probably the first hognose breeder we met was Tom Harbin. We
Okay.
got to know him pretty well. And that led to a really good friendship with Josh and Alicia. They lived just a few miles away from us.
Yes.
Uh,
Yeah.
so we were vending a show in the same block of tables. And my son, again, it's always his fault. He goes over and says, I want a hognose. I'm like, well, just go talk to him and pick one out. We'll get you one. So he went over and he picked one out. And it was just a little normal Posset Snow
Okay.
male, and you know, about, you know, a couple $100 snake. He brought it back over. He's like, I want to get this one. I'm like, okay, cool. I said, well, you know, see if they got a pair. Maybe we'll try to, you know, breed a pair of them. So we ended up getting. They told me just to get a couple of females and then wait and get the males the next year, but we ended up getting like a super conda het toffee belly that incidentally just absolutely chewed on him when he was holding it. And like dad of the year, I'm like, wait, don't pull it off yet. Let me get a picture. But but he, you know, we got that one, and then we got an Arctic Shadow het toffee belly. I really
Hmm.
like the toffee belly more. And so then not long after that, I met John Rice, and I was talking to him, and you know, about wanting to breed. And he's like, well, man, let me put you together a package. So I gave him a budget, and he put me together a package. So I had those from, you know, Josh and Alicia. And then I went into last year with 9 females and 6 males. One of the females went off food before brumation. I thought maybe she was still in good enough shape to brumate. So I thought maybe brumating her and bring her out, she'd, you know, go back on food, and she didn't. And so I was like, well, I'm not going to breed her. And of course, just about the time the window closes, she starts slamming mice again. And now she's one of my biggest females. But you know, so we ended up having a pretty decent year. we also had a hard year, man. I mean, when you're learning a new species, we ended up losing 3 females this year to egg binding.
Yeah.
And, it was, and that's just a reality of working with hognose that a lot of people don't understand. And it's why I think it will take a lot longer for people to I think a lot of people who come over from ball pythons who, I mean, let's be honest, they are probably the easiest snake to breed. I mean, you don't have to really know anything. Just put 2 snakes in a tub once a month, and eventually you're going to get some eggs. I mean, that's just the way it works. There's no brumation. The females don't eat the males. They don't eat their eggs. They're not hard to start on food. I mean, I started 39 ball pythons today, and 39 ate in the first hour they had feeders in. I mean, that's, so it's just, they're probably the easiest snake to breed, which I think probably contributed more to their overproliferation than than the values did. And I don't know, man. I want to make the project snakes. I want to see some projects through, but I don't want to make any more ball pythons just to be making more ball pythons, because I think there's plenty already out there, and I think we're maybe doing a little bit of a disservice to the species by producing so many.
So what was that turning point moment where you said to yourself, okay, I need to get into other species?
I mean, honestly, it was when we first bought that group of hognose. I was like, let's see how this goes, and then before we even bred them, we'd already bought the pine snakes. And, just by going to shows and, walking around and seeing that, I can't count the number of times every show that someone walks by and says, oh, another ball python table. And I always just took that as well, whatever, I mean, the shows are going to bring out what's in demand. So if there's more ball python tables, then there's more demand for ball pythons. If there wasn't, then people wouldn't be paying for those tables. But I went to Tinley that year. It was spring last year that I picked up the Mexican pines. I think it was spring, could have been fall, man. They all run together. But I walked the show because I was looking for something different. I wanted to kind of see what was there. And I couldn't find anything. I mean, there was a few flipper tables that I wouldn't buy anything from that had some different species. But as far as good breeders go, I couldn't find anything that I really wanted. And that was a wake-up call, because it was like, if I want this to be sustainable and I want to enjoy it more, I've got to start adding some new stuff. And and that's when, and then I went a little crazy and probably added too much new stuff. So but we, I've got Sonoran gophers. I added some rosy boas. I've got the pyros. I've got the bulls. I've got 2 trios of tangerine hondos. I'm trying to think of what I'm forgetting. I'm sure it's something. So I guess that's it. Yeah, that's it.
And how come the group, the taxonomy of Colubrids and not like other pythons and stuff like that?
Just honestly, because I everything that I added, I wanted to be able to brumate. Because as our youngest son is a sophomore at the University of Tennessee. Go Vols! I saw somebody say that in the opening comments, and Josh and Alicia and I tailgated all the home Tennessee football games too, so I know they're big ball fans. But yeah, I mean, it was. We would like to travel a little bit and do some other things, and I could see this getting to a point in maybe 4 or 5 years where we're basically brumating the room. I mean, that's kind of where, in a perfect world, that's where this would head for me, is the Colubrids within five or so years would take over the ball pythons pretty much in totality. And we could, or maybe not in totality, but close. And, we could brumate the room and actually do some traveling, man. Because, I mean, getting ready to go just to a show for 4 days with this many animals is, I mean, it's a chore, Now do that for a week vacation. I mean, you have to have somebody watching your stuff.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And, thankfully, Josh and Alicia helped us out last summer because I had a second clutch coming. I'm going to brumate a little bit earlier. I missed my window just barely. But, I had a second clutch. The last one laid while we were on vacation. I don't worry much about them hatching. They know what to do there, It's the laying. We don't need a 400-gram female with 150 grams of eggs in her stomach.
Yes, for sure.
So they took care of that. They pulled several ball python clutches too, and that's another thing about the ball pythons is they're so unpredictable. You know, what I mean, I still have a clutch due to lay. I still got 18 clutches in the incubator. You know, I've got 34 in shed boxes. I just
Yeah.
moved 42 to tubs. You know, what I mean, and we're all the way at Tinley. You know, I mean, and a lot of people's seasons are over by June. Ours is not even starting until September. You know,
Hmm.
the September or October.
Yeah. You know,
And
we were talking to another couple. Forgot, I remember who it was, but I remember the conversation now. We're talking about the break, and they're mainly ball pythons. And I was like, yeah, in 2 months, get 2 months off because the hog nose going to brumation. And she looks at her husband. She's like, they get 2 months off? Why don't we get 2 months off? You know?
yeah, I mean,
So,
and that's honestly, you know, it's you can script your season, and
yes.
that's the thing that I like about it. I mean, I was even looking at next year, and I was trying to kind of measure out space in my. I've only got one brumating incubator. I've got the Wilbanks deal, but I've only got one of them, and I was gonna buy another one, and they're like 2 months back ordered now, so
Oh, wow.
I can't get another one. So I was looking, I'm like, man, I got 2 pines, 3 bulls, 5 pyros, 18 hog nose. You know, I mean, how am I going to fit all these in here? And then I think I've got a way to make it work. But if not, I'm going to have to brumate the hog nose and the pyros. And then when I pull the hog nose out, the pyros still stay in for a month because they need a longer brumation.
Hmm.
And then I'll have to put the bulls in then and start the hog nose eggs in my sea serpents hot boxes before I, before I start putting them into the other one. I think I can shuck and jive it, but that's going to make for a late bull snake season. But we'll see how they fit when I go to putting them in there. I've had a lot of opinions about how to do it, so I'm kind of trying to put all those together and figure out what way I want to do it. Because I mean, that's what you do, right? You know, you talk to people that know what they're doing, but you can ask 10 and get 10 different things. You try to
Correct.
find the things that are the most in common between all of them and
Yeah.
develop what's going to work best for you, because there's 100 ways to do the same thing correctly.
Hmm. Yeah. And see, and that's like, you talked about the Wilbanks incubator, brumator. I forget what do they call it? What's
It's
the
a
actual
homeostatic. It's a Wilbanks
homeostatic? Okay.
homeostatic incubator. I mean, and it
Yeah.
basically just means it cools and heats. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a fancy way to tack another 500 onto it, you
That's right. Yeah.
know.
So,
But
it's funny because like right before that, when I was getting into my first cooling down period, brumation, I was like, man, what am I gonna use and stuff? And I wanted to buy something that I can grow in instead of buying a whole bunch of small ones. So I went and luckily found a commercial like front door open fridge.
there you
Um,
go.
and it's like I found like it's like a $2,500 commercial fridge, and some guy 5 minutes away from me had two sitting in his garage, brand new for some reason, and I got it for $1,000. And that's what I did. I used that commercial fridge. It has double pane glass and stuff like that to cool down, and then I just added heat tape. So it's basically
It's the
a
same thing,
homemade
yeah.
same thing. Homemade.
And it might
Uh,
even be a little better because the thermostat that runs the Wilbanks is an on-off thermostat, because
mm-hmm.
you can't use proportional
For yeah,
power for the cooling, because you'll blow
correct.
your
Yeah.
compressor out.
Mm-hmm.
So but I think they're onto something with the average. And from my experience, I incubated at the exact same temperature that Josh and Alicia did,
Mm-hmm.
and we're in the same. The reason I mentioned them is because we're in the same town basically,
Yeah.
so we're the same exact elevation and weather and everything. And even at incubating at 82, I was getting pips on day 52 or 53 at the latest, where they were
Mm-hmm.
getting pips on day 55 or 56.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people that have used the Wilbanks incubators have had similar experiences, because it's more about the average. And none of these eggs are going to have a complete static temp
Correct.
when they're
Yeah.
incubating in the wild. And some of that little bit of fluctuation, especially with colubrid eggs, I think actually helps,
Yeah.
to a degree.
What temperature did you have the thermostat set for
Uh,
incubation?
I had it set on 82,
Okay.
but my sensor pushes and everything were reading 81.5 to
Mm-hmm.
81.8. I don't measure inside the box. I mean, I know the box is going to be
Yeah.
similar. I don't sweat the exact anymore. I used to get down to weighing every feeder and all this other stuff, and now it's just kind of like, 88, 89. Well, they'll hatch when they hatch, you know.
Yeah.
It's that kind of thing. I think I'm going to
Yeah.
go a little cooler this year, though. I think I'm going to set it to 81 this year. Just take it down a degree. Let them go just a little bit longer.
Mm-hmm.
Because I had a lot of 5 and 6 gram hatchlings last year, and I'm just curious if taking it down a little bit might put a couple extra grams on them, and give me
Yeah.
a little bit more latitude when they come out. I mean, I only
Yeah.
had 3 so far that failed to thrive.
Mm-hmm.
And that's out of 88 offspring, which is not terrible, as
Mm-hmm.
far as the rate goes. And I didn't have very many eggs go bad from the eggs that I did get. So it worked out. It worked out pretty good. It was a successful first season. I've got
Nice.
everybody's eating. I've got 3 that won't live, and I can't seem to get them off live. I'm gonna work
Mm-hmm.
with them more after Tinley when I've got a little bit extra time at home, and all these eggs hatch here, and then it's just feeding and maintaining. Uh, and then I've got, I think, 7 still left being scented. But other than that, I mean, it was nothing near what some people have led me to believe it was going to be. Like, oh my God, it's terrible. I'm like, it's
Yeah.
really not. I mean,
So here's the thing with that, right? And here's the misconception with hognose too, because I've gotten in at multiple shows, like probably every single show I've gone to, and I stop by people stop by the table and ask me or say, "Man, I want a hognose really bad, but I can't get one." I was like, "And why is that? What's holding you back?" They're just not good feeders, and stuff
oh,
like that. I was
dude,
like, and I and
you don't want a ball python, then I can tell
yeah,
you
and I
that.
go, I was like, here's a misconception, and now with all the information, it's getting better. But I was like, if you get a well-established hog nose, 99.9% of the time is gonna be keep eating, and as long as it's put into the right temperature, size enclosure and stuff like that, it's gonna keep eating if it is well established. Now, if you're getting a hog nose that's 10 days out of the egg and maybe has 1 or 2 meals, if that, then you're
Yeah.
gonna have some problems,
No,
right?
I'm following the standard of 10 unscented
Mm-hmm.
meals. Is what I want without any
Mm-hmm.
skips.
Yeah.
Now, if I have one that goes into a growth shed and skips the 7th meal but takes the 8th, 9th, and 10th, I'm okay with that too.
Correct.
I mean, but for the most part, I want to get 10 meals, and that's where it's a little bit different than the ball pythons, because a lot of people do after 3 meals.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to do after 5, because I do, I do like an ASF hopper 3 times. The first time dropped in, the second 2 times off tongs, and then I take them straight to a frozen thawed rat fuzzy. When they take 2 of those, I'm perfectly fine. I'm not really worried even about the weight. There's a lot of people that are
Yeah.
like, well, they've got to be 150 grams. I mean, there's not any difference really between the same age snake that's 90 grams and 150 grams, other than the weight they were born at. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
they're still equally healthy, and they're still going to feed for you if you put them in the right environment.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I mean, for somebody like when I feed the adult ball python room, and I've sold a lot of adults this year, so I'm down to about 128, I think, right now, and I've got 3 more I'm delivering to Tinley
From
pre-sale.
how many?
I
When?
had 252.
Okay,
It's
so
where
about
that
half.
because I'm cutting it down to 12 males and 84 females this year. I
Okay.
just kind of did a reverse draft of my collection, and everything that didn't make the top, and it's going to other people. And there's
Yeah.
just some nice stuff in there too. We sold 21 of those at Dallas. Those adults flew off the table there.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, they're good adults. I mean, they're good, healthy adults that I've got clutch records, and I mean, you're not just buying an adult where they say, "Yes, she laid last year." I mean, I'm giving you how many they laid, what date they laid, what they were paired
Yeah.
to. I mean, you can come up to my table and scan anything, the QR
Yeah.
code, and look at the last 25 events through Husbandry Pro, see the pictures of the parents. I mean, I've provided that since day one.
Yeah. Yeah.
To people that are buying snakes I've hatched. Now, if I sell an adult that I didn't hatch, that I don't have pictures of the parents and everything, I mean, I'll give them the information if they want it. I don't just automatically include it because,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I took somebody else's word for it, So I mean, I hate to pass on that as my own information,
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, when I go to feed colubrids, hog nose included, man, if I pull, I think I've got about 100. I've got 130 hog nose total, including offspring, and then the other colubrids, the bulls and the milks and stuff like that. So I'm 160 snakes, and feeding day for them is on Friday. I mean, if I have 2 refusals, I'm surprised. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yep.
and it's not unprecedented to have zero.
Mm-hmm.
When I feed the ball pythons on Monday, they're kept the same way and everything. I mean, I'm going to have a 65%, maybe 70% feeding rate. And it's not the same one skipping every week. It's sometimes it is. Males go off food and stuff like that. But that makes me want to pull my hair out. That, they tend to, when they start to reach maturity, and it's going to be at different ages based on what you feed and how you feed. But the, I find this to happen for me around 12, 1,300 grams, when they're, probably a year and a half old. They, a lot of the females just go off food, man. Like, it can be 4, 5, 6 months, and it usually coincides with when they're building those first follicles. They're reaching sexual maturity. I kind of call it puberty. So you've got that, and then the males go off food when they're breeding. Sometimes, not all the time,
Yeah.
but sometimes, and that's what I'm kind of fighting right now. But my season's so late that I mean I won't even start pairing ball pythons till probably January.
Yeah. Are you using ultrasound?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Have you tried ultrasounding with hognose with the
I have
female?
not. I have
Okay.
not. I might. I mean, I thought it'd be kind of neat. It's just that they're so small. I'm just not sure if I'd see
Yeah.
anything or
Yeah.
not.
So small,
And
and then the movements and all that stuff.
oh
I think
yeah,
that's the biggest thing, trying to get them still enough to get that good picture of the follicles. You
yeah,
know.
they don't sit still ever.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
no,
So
but
let
they're
me ask
awesome.
you, because there's a very interesting path that you're taking, where you're really drastically downsizing your ball pythons and going to, now it looks like the hognose are going to be your main high end morph producers.
They'll be the big
Yeah.
number. Yeah.
Yeah. What was the steps, because you had to sit down and really see, okay, what's the proper way without you know messing up the market, without being the low man on, just having animals
Oh
fly
yeah.
at the lowest price and stuff like that. What was your strategy on that? Because I think we are in that position where some people are starting to shift to other species, or just trying to downsize their animals. What would you recommend the process of doing that?
Oh man, I'm still figuring that out myself.
Mm,
I mean, it's I think I started to, I mean, I started to integrate the hognose into social media presence when we first got them, back in
yeah.
2021 and 2022. But when you're not breeding them and you're not producing them, yet, I mean, there's only so many pictures I can post of the same 16
Correct.
hognose when I'm hatching, world's first ball pythons and new double recessives, I mean, stuff like that. It's hard to, it's hard to have that presence. And I mean, I felt that at Dallas too, because when we set up at Dallas, it was like, we had a full table of colubrids and
Mm-hmm.
hognose and pyros and the Mexican pines and stuff like that. And then we had 3 other tables of ball pythons.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I didn't sell a single hognose at Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, and my wife's like, you spent a lot on this. We didn't sell any, and I'm like, I never even thought about it. Like, there's no signage. There's no, unless someone knows us
Yeah.
from social media, they walk
Yeah.
by and they see BC's balls, that unless they just happen to be right there looking at the,
Yes.
the deli cup displays we've
Yep.
got, they don't even have any way of knowing. So we're going to have some signs made that we're going to attach to that table. We started kind of rebranding a little bit, and I hate to call it rebranding because the BC part of it means a lot to me because it's my initials, my wife's initials, and all my kids' initials, and that's going to always be a part of it. So on social media, I kind of changed it on Morph Market too to BC's Balls and Reptilia because I
Mm-hmm.
mean, if beginning probably next year, ball pythons are going to be roughly 25% of the production, then it's kind of seems silly to box myself in, and that's something I probably wish I would have thought about, in the beginning, but we didn't
Yeah.
know what this was going to become.
Yeah.
I mean, it was kind of a funny play on words. One funny story: I sponsored my son's high school band. He plays in the band at UT at the probably Southland now, but he was in the high school band at Bearden High School, and we sponsored the band. So at every home football game, they would announce what all the band, Bearden High School band coming to the field, have marched in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade and all this other stuff. And then it's like, and then it says, and Bearden High School brand is brought to you by BC's balls, and he would really like let it echo through the stadium, and you could hear the chuckles and that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. And we just thought it was funny, kind of a funny name, and it represented who we were because kind of paid tribute to the family that
Mm-hmm.
let me. My wife called it the alone time. Like when I was first starting out, I was still working in office, so I was having to come home after working 60 hours a week and do all the stuff here at night. So like we missed out on all that family time for a couple of years, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what made it the hardest for her. And then when COVID hit, God, I hate to say a pandemic's one of the best things that ever happened to me, but it was because they sent me home to work, and when they
Mm-hmm.
sent me home to do my job, my production went through the roof, my numbers went through the roof, and so they made it permanent. I mean, I've been, and this is in the car business. I mean, that's unheard of. And so, I mean, I've been into the dealership, man, no more than twice a year since
Wow.
2020.
Yeah.
And I just, because I mean, I just do it here, and it has its challenges too, because I kind of feel like I'm always at work, not even just with the snakes. I mean, I wear these AirPods from the time I get up till at least 7 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
Because they tell me when there's something that needs to be done. I get an email, ping, so I go downstairs, I do what I need to do. I come back, clean tubs. About the time I get to the third tub, bing, and then I got to run. So, juggling that back and forth and, feeling like you're always at work. Like, that's one of the reasons I really enjoy going to shows too, even if we didn't sell a damn snake, is because I'm not at work for that weekend. It's like a
Yeah.
getaway from my wife and I.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of fun, and we usually do pretty good at the shows. I've been in sales a long time, so if I can get somebody engaged in a conversation, I can probably sell them something if they're there to buy.
Yeah. And I think that's having a sales background and stuff like that has definitely probably helped you um, move on a couple of the adults ball pythons and within your whole vending and stuff. How long have you been vending?
My first NARBC was Arlington in September of 21,
Okay.
and we didn't get a table at Tinley in March of 22, but we did in October of 22.
Mm.
So we we yeah, so we've done every NARBC show since then. We didn't re-register for Dallas. I'm still uncertain whether we're going to be able to make that. It's just so far, for us. And one of the things for me that's just as important in a show as sales are is the social dynamic and the networking and the things
Yes.
like that you do. And I told someone this. I probably sold more snakes in the bar at the Sheridan in Arlington than I did in the show hall itself. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
people that were coming in there because it was such a good hangout and everybody stayed in the same spot. I really hate the way it's split up. There's, one hotel that's more expensive where a few people stay that's right next to the venue, but then there's the one across the street that you have to drive to that doesn't really have a restaurant bar or anything like that. They just have a lobby. And, it's just kind of a different dynamic. And what makes it even harder is I can really only take one weekend off of work per month
Mm-hmm.
with without them spazzing out. They spaz out a little bit over that, but it's and it was always Arlington was February, and then Tinley was March. And
Yeah.
now
Yeah, that's true.
now it's March and March.
Mm-hmm.
And now
That's
instead of being Schaumburg, instead of being in July, it's August, 2 weeks
mm-hmm.
before Daytona, which we plan
Mm-hmm.
on vending Daytona next year. So, I'm going to have to do some juggling with the schedule next year, and hopefully I love the NARBC shows. I mean, I have nothing bad to say about them at all. I just don't know that I can do all of them next year because of the constraints with them being in the same month and so close on top of each other.
Yeah. And with the shows and the amount of shows that are popping up nowadays, um, how many, and we talked a little bit, right? Where you're planning to do the All American Reptile Show as well,
Yeah,
right?
I'm registered for Charlotte starting in the spring. We've got an end cap there, and
Yeah.
we're gonna run with that in the fall as well.
How many shows have you think are you going to be able to cap at a year?
I mean, while I'm still working, I'm gonna probably do 7 or 8. Is about the most I can do because 2 of those weekends fall during a vacation, during our vacations. And,
Mm-hmm.
we're not going to give up the family vacations to do shows. And my my wife would do a hard no on that one. But but no, I'd like to do in a perfect world what I'd like to do next year. And I don't know what Bob's going to do with the Southeast Reptile Expo either. I mean, I don't know any dates for spring, or if he's got anything worked up and decided there, or what, if it's going to be for fall, just fall. I mean, so, what I'd like to do is I'd like to start off the year with Tinley in March. And then I was hoping Bob's was trying to secure a date for the end of March. I don't think that's worked out yet. But, the end of March for that one, then into the Southeast Reptile Expo, and then probably not anything in May or June. Hopefully they get Schaumburg back in July, because I do enjoy that show. I'm just not sure that I can pick Schaumburg over Daytona. And, then do Daytona in August, then Bob and All-American in September, because I think I can probably get away with it because they're so close to where I am. I mean, one's 2 hours away, one's 4 hours away. So I don't have to take off all these extended times. I can just take off a weekend, basically, to do those shows. For the NARBC shows, we leave Thursday morning, and I take off Monday too, because we don't get home until 3 or 4 in the morning from Chicago or St. Louis. Dallas we're not getting home until 8 or 9 o'clock Monday night, and we still have to put animals away and start to get caught up here too. So it's a balancing act, man. It really is.
Yeah, and something I realize now, even for like Florida shows, for the local Florida stuff like Repticon and stuff, since I live so far south, it's a haul for me anywhere. Like to Orlando, it's a 4 hour drive, especially with the kids and stuff like that. A couple stops here and there, and to shoot out to Atlanta or to North Carolina, to Dallas, it's a haul.
Well, you going anywhere, you've got to traverse the entire state of Florida first. Pretty much. I mean, are you in Miami?
Miami.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
So, we haven't been to South Florida in a long time. We went to Fort Lauderdale on a long weekend, just kind of on a whim.
You don't want to be here this weekend. The next couple of days.
No, I know. Well, I tell you, man. I want to at least speak on this too, because I mean, I know there's a storm barreling in. Again, we lived in Clearwater for several years.
Okay.
So, we're Pinellas County, former residents anyway, and this storm reminds me a lot of Charlie. I don't know if you remember Charlie or not. I mean, but Charlie, we were there, and it was supposed to come straight up Tampa Bay, and we lived about 2 miles from the water, so we were pretty well inland. We weren't even in the flood zone, but we were in Tarpon Springs, not far from the Sponge Docks. And I didn't want to leave. All our neighbors were leaving, going to Orlando. I was like, look, it's a Cat 1 storm. I think we'll be fine. It's a brand new house, new construction. We don't have any big trees to fall. I mean, it's no chance of flooding, where we are. And, we watched Charlie turn into Punta Gorda and go across the state up to Orlando. It never even rained where we were. And this Milton reminds me a lot of Charlie, because Charlie was a Cat 5 storm for a long time before it came in. But once it came in, it died down to like a Cat 3. But it was still a Cat 2 in Orlando. It held its punch. So there was a lot of destruction, but it completely missed us. So, I mean, I'm hoping it goes to a less populated area. But I want to speak a little bit about kind of what's going on away from the coast too, because Helene was devastating for Tennessee, North Carolina, Georgia. I mean, just 50 miles away from here, there's entire towns that don't exist anymore. I mean, they're gone. I mean, the entire town is just now a rocky riverbed.
Yeah, and I have friends that are originally from Asheville, out of the reptile world, and I messaged him as soon as I was seeing the news come in from all the destruction of that stuff.
Oh yeah, I mean, just to put it in perspective for anybody that doesn't know, I mean, we're about, as the crow flies, we're about 78 miles from Asheville.
Oh wow! So
we close. Are, but going up and over on the highway, it's about 110, 120 miles. And in order for us to even get to Asheville now, assuming that, everything's back to normal other than the roads, we would have to drive all the way to Virginia and then down to Asheville, because Interstate 26 is gone, Interstate 40 through the mountains is gone. Probably will be years. I mean, they're saying not, but I mean, that's the government highway. I mean, it takes them 2 years to pave a lane. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
definitely going to take them longer than that to replace an entire road and the area underneath it that washed out. Like that's going to take some major engineering to do. And I've never seen anything like that. And I just would like that. When people are thinking about the storms and what happened, to please remember it's not just a coastal event. I mean, there's people that are suffering all over the southeast
Mm-hmm.
because of Helene.
Mm-hmm.
And I just pray that Milton, when it comes in, just misses the population centers. I mean, that's just what you hope.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
Because we got good
I've told
friends down
people,
there.
you know, we're not originally from Florida, but we've been here since 2012, 2011, 2012, and we've been very lucky. I haven't gone through any major hurricanes on our side, but it takes a little bit of a coastal, a front to push it and move it somewhere else, and we're
Oh, dude,
supposed
they
to
can.
get.
It can wobble and change directions at any
Mm-hmm.
time. I mean, Charlie turned in at Pinagorda. That was over 80, 90 miles from where we
Mm-hmm.
were. And it
Mm-hmm.
was such a compact storm that, I mean, it passed. We ended up going to the Sunshine Skyway in Bradenton and went fishing.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was like it wasn't going to rain. Everything was closed and that kind of stuff. So we just were like, well, heck, let's get out because there's no reason not to. And
Yeah.
then all our neighbors that went to Orlando, like they got their windows blown out of their cars and stuff like that. My wife's like, well, I'm glad we didn't go to Orlando. She wasn't saying that when she was putting mattresses in the bathtub for us to get under when it came in. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's scary stuff, man. I just, our
Yeah.
my whole family's thoughts go out to everybody that's in the path, and be safe. Don't make stupid decisions. Don't try to be brave. Mother
Mm-hmm.
Nature doesn't care.
Yeah.
Mother Nature doesn't. You don't have anything to prove. Get out of there.
Yep. I saw was it Justin's Instagram page post story post today, and it says if you need to get your animals out of the path and stuff like that, we're in Georgia, DM us, and that's it's really great to see once the reptile world comes together and starts helping each other, and a lot of people I said at the beginning of the podcast, I have my stuff just in case it does change path. But if we're unscathed and somebody needs some of the, I got a generator, water, gas, and stuff like that. If anybody needs any of that stuff, message us. And if
Oh
we're
yeah.
unscathed, we don't need it. We're willing to, help out somebody else that needs it more than us.
Well, our son got back from Brody. He got back from the Arkansas game, which we
Mm-hmm.
lost, of course. But we can't seem to beat Arkansas when it counts. But but he got back and immediately went to Upper East Tennessee to
Mm-hmm.
volunteer. He's been loading helicopters and stuff like that for the last couple of days, and
That's
it's
great.
nice to see him motivated. He's an Eagle
Yeah.
Scout. He's very philanthropic in the way he thinks about things. So and the same way. And, for anybody, and the off chance somebody's listening, I mean, the Georgia Motor Speedway also opened up their entire camping area to
Okay.
people that are evacuating from Florida. So if anybody needs somewhere to catch a few Z's, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's open and at no cost whatsoever. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure, man. You know, and with that, it's with the reptile stuff and you going into hognose, because I'm a hognose breeder, and I try to
oh,
bring
yeah.
in mostly hognose content and stuff to here. It's what are the projects that you're most looking forward to working with the hognose?
Ooh, man, I like the permafrost stuff a lot. Uh, that's something that I was lucky enough to get,
Mm-hmm.
some, uh, I picked up a pair of sable het perma het lavenders
Mm-hmm.
from John, and then I got a female Arctic uh, het perma het lavender 66 het albino.
Okay.
So I've got that one. But I mean, I like the Mai Tai stuff. I like the sunburst stuff. I don't have. I've not bought chocolate yet.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure I will, to be honest with you. I like Sable just as much, and I think it's all going to level off to where it's just a matter of which one you like the best. Uh, but, man, who knows? And plus, that's, one of our good friends' main projects, and I don't want to, go out and buy up a bunch of their project animals that
Yeah.
they're working on because we're in the same area. And, I want to be, I like to play well with others. A lot of people
No,
in
for
this
sure.
community
For
don't.
sure.
And,
Yeah.
I always try to make sure I'm not going to undercut somebody because, pricing is one of those things. There's not a guidebook, but no, some of that, I got lucky last year. I had a pairing of an Arctic Conda toffee belly het sable to a double het. And only got 6 eggs. She slugged out the rest of the way. Her second clutch slugged out all the way. The eggs looked weak, put them in there, they pipped and, ended up hitting 3 natas, 2 males and a female. So naturally I kept those. And then hit some nice Arctic Conda sunburst, Arctic sunburst. I didn't hit just a Conda sunburst, which I made for a project, but I was able to pick up one from Josh and Alicia that was one of Tom's animals.
That's
it bit me today, by the way, but
yeah,
it was coming out of mouse. I can't blame it. I smelled like the rodent room.
Here's funny about the sunburst project, because I got into Swiss chocolate, and my thought was, okay, everybody's doing sunburst stuff, sable albino combos. I'm just gonna go and move it towards Swiss chocolate and albinos and go that route if within that combo. This year, out of my possible het permafrost female, het permafrost male, I got sunburst.
So you had albino hiding.
Yeah, I got albino in both. From 2 different sources, got albino in both. The luck of the draw, right?
We were having this discussion in Jeff's Discord the other day about disclosing possets, and that's new to me to think that way. You know what I mean? Because when you're dealing with ball pythons, and the ball python community can be a little bit ruthless at times, and that's probably putting it mildly. I could be a lot more colorful in the way I would describe that, but very judgmental about the way people do things. And if you were to list something as a low chance posset or a 25% head or a 12.5% head or anything like that, man, you would get
laughed off more market.
You would get absolutely basted because they would think you're trying to sell an animal for more than what it actually is. When in reality, you just want to, it's like with complexes that'll make white snakes. I always disclose if there's a possibility of yellow belly or Mojave or any of those genes being in the snake, just so the person buying it doesn't get a surprise down the road, because I've been there. Yeah. And I think with the hognose, I think the albino's in so much stuff that and a het can pass generations
and just be hidden. Just you haven't hit the right combo, or you're not going for that combo and you don't hit it right. And that's one of those projects that I wish albino was not in it.
Oh yeah, I hear you, and I hear people talk about too that looking for just straight normals, like no hets, no anything, just straight normals. That's a language you don't hear in a lot of species, but the reason they want that is so they can make their own pieces that they know 100% what the hets are, and even more importantly, what hets aren't there.
Yes.
Because there's people that I didn't realize how many people have an aversion to albino.
You talked about John and stuff, and I was looking for storm cloud stuff, and last year I go, okay, I want to get storm cloud stuff into the project, either a sable het Azantic or Azantic het sable, which is crazy because a Azantic het sable was so much harder to find, especially last year with Conda or anything like that. But here was the kicker, where anybody I messaged, and I went down the line of people that I knew that had the project, they were most of the time het albino as well.
All snowburst.
Another project I don't want albino in.
Yeah, see, I've got some snowburst stuff that I think I'm going to put my storm cloud stuff to the snowburst stuff, and my snowburst stuff to the storm cloud stuff, and obviously there'll be possets, but it does seem like a little bit of a waste of you lose a lot of value in some of those combos when the genes can't be expressed.
Correct. Yeah. So this year, what I did was I sacrificed some visual breedings and did triple het Azantic sable toffee bellies, to go that route, and just because then I can get Mai Tais, I can get storm clouds, and then I can get acid rains too.
I was gonna say that's acid rains. I've probably looked at those triple hets you've got 37 times on Morph Market.
Man.
I kept looking at them. I'm like, man, that'd be a good one to have. But at some point I've got to just chill for a minute,
I totally get it.
It's getting it's getting to the point where I have a lot of stuff coming up, and one of the problems I had with ball pythons was I bought so many that when I started hatching stuff that I wanted to keep, it was really hard to make the decisions of what to let go of and what to keep.
Yeah.
You know, but the thing I love about the hognose, I mean, there's so much. I mean, beyond the personalities of them, and the community has just been outstanding. Like,
Yes.
I haven't gotten any negativity from the community about entering the community. I've gotten good advice from everybody. I mean, I call, you know, Jeff is kind of like the Justin Kubelka of hognose, you know, in a way. And, you know, I can call Jeff and have a conversation with him. You know, I mean, he's just such a good guy. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, he's helped me a lot. The Harbins have helped me probably more than any one single
Yeah.
person. And, you know, John is awesome to talk to. And then you get into places like Jeff's Discord, and,
Mm-hmm.
you know, almost everybody in there is just, I mean, we give each other crap just for
Yeah.
fun, but it's, you know, at the same time, it's, you know, it's everybody's pretty much accepting and, you know, willing to help.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nobody that seems to be so hardcore dug in the hognose community like there are in others about this is the only way you can do this. This is the way it has to be done, you know, that sort of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
You
You
know,
know, and that's one thing when like I got into hognose, um, I like same thing, you know, into reptiles and stuff, but never deep into the reptile world. And I fell upon hognose, getting back into reptiles, and the reason was my daughters. They were this is one of the snakes they were looking at, and I'm so glad I fell into hognose and not into ball pythons. And nothing against ball pythons, but
no, I get
seeing,
it.
you know, seeing where I'm at with the hognose and the opportunities that I can have and the friendships that I've made through the hognose world, it's, you know, I've never second thought of this journey that I'm on. You know, and then with the podcast, the YouTube or the Instagram content and stuff, that's another untapped route with hognose too. It wasn't, you know, there wasn't anybody doing podcasts that were bringing specifically hognose breeders or people like you that are really jumping into the deep end of hognose.
Yeah.
You know, and what I tell people all the time, you can still make a good, you know, impact in the hognose breeding, and still been within that, you know, 5 6 year time frame instead of the
Oh,
10,
absolutely.
you know, all that
And
stuff.
you know, well, I mean, here's some comparisons. You know, just to kind of put it in perspective. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you know, when you're breeding a large number of ball pythons, you know, you'll find on average that 50 to 60% of your females are going to lay a clutch in any given year.
Yeah.
So, last year, we paired 103 and we did 43 clutches. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I'm not upset about that. The number was down a little bit, and you know, but I mean, some of those girls never built follicles, never did. You know, they never did anything. And you know, my clutch average is like 8.2, which is higher than most. But I mean, I feel like feeding the African soft furs has made a big difference in our clutch average, and we've seen that go up and up and up. Like in the 18 clutches that are in the incubator right now, there's 162 eggs. You
Mm-hmm.
know, so I mean that's a lot for ball pythons.
Yeah.
But 18 hognose clutches, you know, I mean, you're talking about 300 plus eggs. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, but because they're so prolific, and
Yes.
you know, you can take more chances in hognose with possets and with long shot pairings if you have a target animal in mind. Because
Correct.
number one, the byproduct is not something that you're going to have to throw on the table for $20 and beg somebody to take. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? The byproduct has still got real value as a pet
Yeah.
because
Because
people
even
will.
that 1 out of 32 chance of, you know, heads to heads, you in two, you know, in one breeding season, you get a female that lays between 15 eggs in two, you know, clutches. You're hitting, you know, 30 babies and the higher chances and stuff like that too.
Oh yeah, I mean, and that's where you know you can do that, but you can also produce a lot more animals in a much smaller space,
Mm-hmm.
a lot less of a workload, and the nature of their diet and the fact that you know you pretty much never want to feed them live. Sometimes you have to, you know, when they're
Yeah.
babies to get them
Yep.
going. And then I've got an adult male that won't touch anything but live. But I mean, he's a male. I don't really care if a male's on live because,
Yeah.
you know, I've got the live here and he's not ever going to eat anything big enough to hurt him. I can't imagine throwing, you know, a 300-gram female a live mouse. You know, I mean, that
Yeah.
just, you know, that would scare the crap out of me.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
not to mention the potential parasites. It's threat of where what the teeth can do. You know, and
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we've got hog nose that you know spent a lot of money on, you know, I
Yeah.
mean, and
Yeah.
like with a ball python, if it gets bitten by one of its feeders, it's a little pinch. It's a little red mark on a scale that goes away in 2 days, you know, that kind of thing. You know, they can do some real damage to hognose.
Yeah.
And, you know,
With
that's one of, no, go
yeah,
ahead.
with with the ball pythons and talking about like the hognose community, have you got any backlash or any comment about moving your adults and getting out of the ball python world, or
I
not
mean,
getting
not
out but
really.
reducing? You
You
know.
know, not really. I think you're kind of seeing that happen with a lot of people across the
Mm-hmm.
board. That you know that they're starting to realize that you know diversity is going to create longevity for you, and if
Yes.
you with the way the cycles happen in the industry as far as what people are looking for, what people want, what's marketable, what's not. You know, it's I think covering all your bases is a good idea.
Yes.
And you know, and like I said, with the ball pythons, it's a gamble every year. With the hognose, I can script my season. You know, with the
Mm-hmm.
bull snakes, I can script my season. If I want eggs in June, if I want eggs in April and May with second clutches coming in, wait a minute, March and April with second clutches coming in June and or May and June, then I know I need to put them into brumation right around Thanksgiving. You know
Yep.
what I mean? That kind of thing. You know, this year I'm gonna try to get them into brumation by mid-November. I think the last feeding of October will be the last one I do.
Mm-hmm.
Then we count down for 2 weeks and you know, then
Yeah.
see how we're gonna Jenga all this shit into the
Yeah.
wheelbase. but
Yeah.
but
And
the
then, before we move on more into the hognose, I really want to deep dive into the hognose project stuff that ball python projects. What are some, give me a handful of projects that you're really going to see through and people can really be looking forward to.
VPI Xanthic Desert Ghost Clown is
Okay.
one that I'm going to really start making some really nice pieces for this year. I've got about a dozen Desert Ghost Clowns that have hatched so far this year. Some of them are codon packed that are also het for hypo, so the hypo DG Clown project. And then I want to marry that into the DG Clown Pod project, which I've got my first pairings for this year. I'm really passionate about the G Stripe Clown project. It's not as glamorous or
Mm-hmm.
not as widely worked as some are, but I mean that's one that kind of has been. It's eluded me for so long that I can't not see it through.
Yeah.
So there's that one. Um, you know, and then I'll always make high end clowns. You know, I mean that's clown is the gene that I like the most in ball pythons. Uh, and you know it's also one of the most produced genes in ball pythons, which means if you're going to make clowns, you better be making special clowns, or you know they may be a little bit hard to move. But you know we've had really good luck with the clowns. I mean, I just had a clutch hatch yesterday. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I just sent out a quote for RGI for 200 tests. You know, to go ahead and just buy a book of tests and have them ready to go because I've already got 49 tests dried out,
Ready to
ready to
hit. Yeah.
send in, you know. And because I mean, I honestly can't look at these and tell you what's in them. It's impossible. I mean, you know, and I don't know how much you know about ball python genetics, but I mean, this is a chocolate black pastel hypo desert ghost het clown to a orange dream leopard phantom clown het desert ghost. And I think we hit 3 desert ghost clowns in there that are just loaded with chocolate phantom, uh, leopard, you know, several other genes that are 100% het hypo.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, had another clutch hatch not long ago that I hit 5 DG clown het hypos, 2 males and 3 females. So you know, it's the you know the same as kind of in hognose. The multi recessive is the way everything is trending, and you know that's where you're gonna really kind of make the most amazing animals, you know. And
Yeah.
I can't wait to find out what's in some of these. And you know, these have got to shed. I may be able to tell more about them once they shed, and I can get some good comparisons going. But
Mm-hmm.
you know, I found the hognose a lot easier to identify because there's not as many genes, unless you do something like you know, like what you said, you know, have albino pop up in a dark project, and now you know
Yeah.
it's hard to say. But I
Yep.
mean, you know, there's really only 2 codons, you know, in hognose, the Arctic
Yes.
and the Conda. You know,
Yeah.
then the one thing that I'm interested to work with is some of the poly stuff.
Yes.
You know, we
Yeah.
got some of Jeff's 5th generation extreme red stuff. That's of course had what is it, het snow,
Mm-hmm.
so that should, and then I got a, what do you call it, a pink snow from him. And then I got some lemon ghost from John. I couldn't talk him out of a lemon ghost sable. I tried, but he wouldn't let one go. But I did get a trio of lemon ghost 66 het sables
Okay.
that I've got the males. The females are still getting the females are still getting established. And then, talking about the differences and the parallels between the two is, you know, in those 103 ball pythons I paired last year, I only used 14 males.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so much different in hognose because, I mean, the 1 to 2 is pretty much the max, but it's good to have utility males on the shelf too because, you know, a male could get eaten. A female
Yes.
could be not receptive to that male. That male might not feel like breeding that year. He may have
Yep.
bred great last year, and then this year he's not going to do anything.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of people that have a 1-to-1,
Yeah.
ratio. In the
Yeah.
hog
And
nose. So,
and you might get that one male that's just good enough. Like he might try to, do the job with two females, but he's just good enough for one male. I mean, one female. And I have a male like that. And I've 2 seasons I've tried it out with different females to see if it was the females, but it's the male. He's only good for one shot, and that's it.
I hear you. So you're getting one with a good clutch and the other one
Yeah.
slugging?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
I had that happen with some last year, and that may very well be, the
Mm-hmm.
case. So I'm looking forward to having some more males in the mix. And like I said, I've got close to 70 females, and I don't intend on breeding that many in one year.
Mm-hmm.
But it's, being able to, select the projects and stuff like that, and knowing that, hognose, you do have some inherent issues, and it's not just hognose. I mean, colubrids across the board can be
Yeah.
prone to egg binding in captivity, especially if we're feeding them a diet that's not natural.
Mm-hmm.
I've started over the last year supplementing with bionates.
Mm-hmm.
With all my well-established feeders. I'm not trying to give babies that stuff because they'll be
Yeah.
like, "What?" But
So real quick with the babies, and I got this actually from John, and because he had mentioned it, I think on our podcast, um, and then even with like some of the more picky adults, like the males, I dip just the butt in the Vionate and
oh,
then feed
that's
them
all I
head
do.
first.
All of them. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
all I do. All of them. Yeah,
and,
all of them. It
and
goes in the
yeah, because
yeah.
sometimes I've tried, just sprinkling on like seasoning, and as soon as they get the whiff or the taste of it, they're like, no, no, thank you.
Oh, I've got
You know.
three. I've got three well-established snakes, 30, 40
Mm,
gram snakes that I can't even dry them off with the same paper towel
yeah,
that I used that I set Bionate. Because if it gets even a
yeah,
tiniest bit of that scent on there, they're not going
yeah,
to eat.
yeah.
And
And Vionate
so,
is a strong smell. Like even us
oh, it,
as
it is.
I could just imagine what they're sensing to their their glands.
Now, do you Bionate every meal?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, yeah, I do
Yeah.
too. I know
Yeah.
with the calcium and the females, during pairing, I
Mm-hmm.
was doing every other meal on
Mm-hmm.
that because I would feed them. The way I fed the females coming out of brumation last year, I would feed them their normal, small mouse, 20, 22 gram mouse on a Friday.
Mm-hmm.
And then on Monday, I would feed them like a smaller, like a hopper,
Mm-hmm.
and then pair on Wednesday, separate the next day, and then do the same thing again. And what's funny is like I didn't witness very many locks. I mean,
Yeah.
you'd see the courting behavior, and I've got
Yeah.
some of the polycarbonate tubs that you can see in. So I saw a couple of locks that way, or what I suspect were locks, but they didn't. The first one I got, I've never sent a Josh and Alicia picture. I'm like, "Is this a lock?" She's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "But their tails aren't twisted." She's like, "No, they go side by side." I mean,
Yeah.
they're not, because the ball pythons will be all
Mm-hmm.
hooked up like this for
Yeah.
3 days.
And then if you get
Sometimes.
a female dragging the male, he's
Oh, I
totally
had
off the
that
side.
happen. I called John at like 10 o'clock at night. And I'm like, "Dude, what do I do?" And he's like, "What?" I'm like, "My freaking lab set, wait a minute, my double het lab sable female is dragging the double het male all over the tub." And he's like, "Dude, just leave them alone. They'll come apart." He goes, "Worst case scenario, he loses a peen. He's got another one." I'm
Yeah.
like, "Okay," and I
Yeah.
left him
Yeah.
alone, and I came back the next day, and they were in opposite corners, and he kind of
Yeah.
sulked a little while. He didn't eat for a couple of weeks after that, and then, but he was only seeing one female, so it was, it didn't hurt. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
obviously he had a good lock,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So those are all like little quirks that you'll see in hognose or other colubrids where you'll be like, okay, do I really want to do this? Do I really
Oh
want to
yeah.
mess with this and see this, the possibilities of this happening again?
Oh yeah, well, it is, but it's also the challenge that
Mm-hmm.
motivates me a little bit. I mean, the ball pythons are almost too easy. I mean,
Mm.
they're harder to maintain, they're harder to keep clean. I mean, that kind of stuff. You have to keep a bigger number to produce the rate
Yes.
I want to produce.
Yeah.
So that lends itself to big tubs, big cleanings, lots of substrate. Like I'm bringing in cypress mulch 2 pallets at a time, and putting it in my carport outside. Like
Mm-hmm.
my carport is rat bedding, pine pellets. I've got an 8 foot table out there that I used to use when we did some shows. That every once in a while you'd show up, they'd have 6 foot tables, so I always
Yeah.
kept 2 8 foot tables in the back of the truck, the plastic Lowe's ones that pop out. So I've got that outside as a work table, a big shelf, and then my rodent room's at the end of my carport. We haven't parked our cars in the carport in years, you know what I mean? Because there's just no room to put
Yeah.
anything in there. That's where we do all our work, and people are like, you should put a rodent building up. I'm like, well, I mean, I'd love to, but it's kind of hard when you live basically in a forest. I mean, I couldn't even drive a 4-wheeler around my house on either side
So
without
too
going
many.
out into the
Gotcha.
woods because, I mean, it's just completely wooded.
Yeah.
So it would take, and we're on a hill. So it would
Mm-hmm.
take a significant amount of engineering just to put a foundation to put a building. And as far as the reptiles go, I kind of like having them in the house, man. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
like I'm sitting here with you in the snake room. I can hear the TV that my wife's watching downstairs.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Yeah.
can, I feel like I'm still with my family, even if we're not in the same room,
Yeah.
as
And then
opposed to being out back.
once you downsize your ball python collection, then you're gonna have plenty of room too,
Well,
in your
that's
house
what's
and
going
stuff.
to move into here. That's kind of the
Yeah.
eventual plan. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
just put that rack together Saturday because I've got so many
Mm-hmm.
babies I had to do it. But I mean, this entire room, this is the master bedroom of the
Mm-hmm.
house, or it's what it's meant to be, and it's a 16 by 20, room,
Okay.
and it's got, I mean, it's completely loaded down with racks. Well, my
Mm-hmm.
plan with the hog nose are to move one of my 1575s in here with a 50/40, and I've already got a 55/40. I know it's not necessary for females, but I think they'll do fine in it. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I've already got it. I hate to sell it and put together another 50 series rack. I'm
Yeah.
just going to retrofit the polycarbonate tubs in there. But, that'll also work out for some of the other things I do need to keep in a bigger tub, but not a giant tub.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then on the other side of the wall in here, I've already talked to Chris. I talked to Chris at Dallas about some, I think 108 pencil tub,
Okay.
racks, and then get those in here. Because I mean, I can't. One of the things, like I've got a little bit of a jacked up back, so getting down to bottom tubs on the floor and
Yes.
everything. I
Yes.
mean, it's not so bad with the commercial racks and the pythons and even the hognose. But in the little pencil tub racks where you have to really pay attention to detail,
Yeah.
and
3 or 6
you look away.
at yeah.
Yeah, you look
Yeah.
away for 2 seconds and it's halfway across the room, that
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. And especially the pyros, man. I mean, they're like little racers, dude. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've had to dump my trash can because one jumped out of a tub and fell into the trash can, which thankfully it did, or it would be under the dresser or under the bed or
Yeah.
something like that. Because I mean, I've got this room and then I've got the hatchling room across the hall,
Mm-hmm.
that's got 280. It's got 280 tubs in that room, plus a single stack of 70 series that I've got some of the smaller pits in. And then I'm getting ready to order a big ARS rack, so when the bulls come out of brumation, they're in the bigger tubs, not the big sideways. I just don't think, I think that's too much. But they've got I think it's an 8506 is what it's called. Uh, it's got more floor space than like the Christmas tree tubs.
Wow.
So I'm gonna get one of those for the bulls, and then in my son's room is where the hatchling. Well, his old room. It's now my packing storage room, but the it's got the pencil tub racks on top of a dresser. I've just got the 36 tubs side by side by side, and then that's where the Wilbanks incubator is, and I've got a 2 wide 5 high stack of 50 series, and then uh, it's 6 total 10 series tubs. That's what we started with our initial, hog nose collection. I'd like to eventually get all that out of there, everything into here, and then just and then be able to move the ball.
All right. Oh, we lost. We might have lost his. There we go. Promethean, thanks for the. There we go, Brian.
Oh, there we go.
Promethean, thanks for the pythons. Thanks for the
Hey, what's
super
up, Brett?
chat. Um,
Yeah,
We,
that's
we
my
lost
man
you for a
Brett.
few seconds.
Oh, did you? I kind of
Yeah,
it flashed there for a minute. I don't know.
yeah, I don't, yeah, myself. But you know, with growing a collection of multiple species and stuff like that, what do you think right now is the biggest challenges for you?
Ooh, before I got husbandry pro, keeping up with feedings, that
Mm,
was by far the biggest challenge. I mean,
mm-hmm.
I said at one time I've got 11 species on 5 different feeding regimens. The bulls I feed every 10 days. Well, the adult bulls I feed every 10 days. The juvenile bulls I feed weekly. I had 4-day feeders, 5-day feeders, weekly feeders, feeders on Monday, feeders on Friday, and trying to keep track of all that. I was trying to keep track of how many feeders I needed on my notepad on my phone and just update it by counting tubs and all
Oh
this. And I'm
wow,
like,
yeah.
and Zach's one of my best friends. Okay,
Okay,
so
cool.
we talk. Well, I'd like to say we talk almost every day. We used to talk almost every day. Now we're both so busy we don't get to, but at least once
Yeah,
a week we're
yeah.
talking. And he's been on my butt to get husbandry pro for so long, and I'm like, Zach, I just don't need it, man. It's not, I mean, I'm like, I've got everything on Reptile Scan. What I'm doing works for me. And this was when I just had ball pythons,
Mm-hmm.
and then even with the smaller collection of hognose, that was easy enough because I knew I fed them on Friday. I need 10 small mice and 6 crawlers. That's
Yeah.
not hard to remember. But like today's feed list, just for instance, off the top of my head was 96 ASF hoppers, 41-day-old pinkies, 6 regular pinkies, a small ASF. Oh my God, what else was it? There were a few other things on there too. Like, how could I remember that? I mean, I can't remember that. Well, once I set everything up in Husbandry Pro, it was like the light shine above.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like, oh, I mean, I literally wake up every day, and the first thing I do is hit refresh on Husbandry Pro on my computer. This is before I even sign into work.
Yeah.
So, and I look at the notifications in the top right side, so I know how many snakes I've got to feed today, because it's very rare that a day goes by that I'm not feeding something. If I look up there to 0, I'm like, yeah, I got a day off.
Yeah. Yeah.
But and it's funny how we make that transformation too, because we go from, I mean, I mean, I remember my first snakes. I mean, like, feeding used to be something you looked forward to. Like, it was, it was something that, like, man,
Mm-hmm.
like, I can't wait till Friday when I feed again. And now it's like, oh man, today I got to feed adults today. Oh man, I got to feed hatchlings today, because it does become a chore.
Yeah.
I mean, when you get to a certain level of animals, and it's just not as fun as it used to be as far as the feeding. It just becomes one of those routine things that you do, each
Mm-hmm.
day. So the
Mm-hmm.
last 2 days, I've spent half the day in the rodent room and half the day feeding half the collection each day to get everything kind of pulled ahead a little bit. So when we go to Tenley, and I won't make up the feedings at Tenley. I'll just, I mean, it doesn't hurt to skip a week on anything,
For sure.
So,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
we'll,
Yeah.
we're just gonna come back Monday and get caught up in everything, and then the regular schedule starts back Tuesday.
Yeah. And with and you made a good point where, like, now becomes just a chore instead of, okay, I got to feed today. I don't need a reminder and stuff like that. Um, do you think there's a certain number that you're gonna cap out in total amount of animals?
Man, I've got to be close right now, honestly. Like, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's as far as like the total number goes. Like,
Mm-hmm.
once all these ball pythons hatch, of course, depending on what sells between now and then,
Yeah.
we're gonna hit a number somewhere around 600, probably something like that. And and it's important to note, like, I mean, I do this 100% myself. Like, my son comes home one day a week, and he sprays the rodent tubs and does some planting and prepping out there for me, and that helps out a lot. And
Mm-hmm.
don't get me wrong, he's not cheap, but he's going to get the money anyway. I might as well get something out of it, right? But
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, I've thought about that a lot, because if I feel like if I'm just doing hognose and colubrids, I can handle more
Mm-hmm.
than I can with the ball pythons, because it's all coming at once. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
all your babies are set up. Now let's get them
Yeah.
eating. So
Yeah.
if I've got 600 hognose hatchlings, I mean, I could feed 200 a day for 3 days, and that will be done. And if I'm doing just hognose and bulls and the colubrids, I probably won't maintain a year-round rodent room. I'll probably just set up some mouse colonies just before breeding season to have those live day old pinks that I need, because I mean, Lane Labs, I mean, their sizing is on point. That's who I've been ordering
Mm-hmm.
from here lately. And, it's just too inexpensive with the mice, where
Yes.
you get into the
Yeah.
expensive stuff is the rats. Like, if I have 300 ball python hatchlings, it's going to cost me $600 a week
Yeah.
to feed them a rat pup a week.
Yeah.
Where, the mouse pinks are 35 cents, 40 cents, something like that. So it doesn't add up quite as much.
Yeah. And
Um,
I think that's another plus with that, with the bill being such a lower percentage of it, where people can still hold on to an animal a longer time and not have to, okay, let me drop this price to try to move it, because I'm only feeding it a couple, let's say at a max, $1 a day, $1 a week or something like that, instead
yeah.
of, I mean, I have no idea what's a rat cost for a yearling ball python and stuff like that.
I mean, a yearling ball python, which should probably be on a wean, that's probably going to be $3.
$3.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
would be my guess. To $250 to $3. I haven't
Mm-hmm.
bought a rat in a long time, so I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, we produce all the ball python food, and then I've got mice that Josh and Lisa hooked me up with to
Mm-hmm.
have pinks and stuff like that. But I still pretty much buy most of the mice that I feed. It's just I just have like 3 colonies of mice. It's not a
Okay.
lot,
Yeah.
just enough to always have a litter of pinks on the ground, or most
Yeah.
of the time.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's the highest quantity you'll feed, especially those, those first couple, feed those first 10 feedings, those pinks and stuff. Those
Oh man, the first time I ordered 2,000 pinks, it was like, this is crazy. I can't believe I'm ordering 2,000 pinks, but it
yeah.
was like, let's just get them in and have them. And,
Yeah.
and that's another thing. I know I'm going to sound like a husbandry pro shill here, but it's like, having those reminders and that inventory of feeders. I mean, that's another thing that I was like struggling with all the different species was I would go to the freezer and get feeders and be like, ooh, I don't have, I only have 8 small mice. I need 10 today, and I can't
Mm-hmm.
order any till next week. They're not going to get here until the next feeding day.
Yeah.
And I like being able to set those alerts and stuff like that. I mean, it's been a game changer for me, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
And it definitely helps with this number of animals a lot.
Yeah. I tell people, everybody that I meet is like, get Husbandry Pro, just try it out. And like you were in those shoes too, right? Where it's like, oh, I don't need it. I don't need it. But once you see the light, you see what you've
Oh
been
yeah.
missing.
Oh, I went from no, I don't need it, no, I don't need it, to being a partner in like
Mm-hmm.
3 months, because
Mm-hmm.
I'm setting up so many people on it now, and helping people get set up on it. It's
Mm-hmm.
they're they're realizing that, like, I mean, there's literally not a comparison out there, I mean, to what Husbandry Pro does, across the board. And
Yeah.
it's not perfect. It's got some issues. One of the
Correct.
things I pull my hair out with is when I go to make a show layout. I do that beforehand. Now the deli cups are different. That'll be so much easier again with
Yeah.
Colubrids, because once I label those, they're labeled. Unless I'm changing the price, there's no reason for me to relabel it. I just put the
Mm-hmm.
deli cup up and then put the snake back in it, and it goes in my display where I want it. But when you're talking about the standard, like, 3-tier displays with
Yeah.
the acrylic cases and stuff like that, no 2 shows are going to be the same.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like relabeling those every single show. And it's helped with that a lot. But I like to print out my price list, and I can't get it to print in the order that I want it, and like in sequential order of, like, 2411, 2412, 2413. Even if I sort by date of birth, I mean, it will do it on the screen, but when I hit
Yes.
print, it doesn't do it when I print. And Zach's like, I'll put in a ticket.
Well, 24. There's gotta be.
Well, it's a
I
spreadsheet thing. It's you can't, even
Yeah.
even if you go on Morph Market or anywhere else and you sort by ID number, it's not going
Mhm.
to be right, because it's going to go 24/1, 24/11, you know what I mean, that kind of thing. And then,
Yeah.
but if you sort by date of birth, it should be equal, because I do fudge a little bit there. If I've got 2 clutches that hatch on the same day, I still differentiate them by 1 day, just so I can sort everything by the date of birth. But it's just when it prints out there, and I'm sitting down and I'm saying, okay, this one's going in display one, slot one, and I'm kind of sorting it out by
Yeah.
project and stuff like that. But we've gotten used to it. I mean, the negatives are minimal. I mean, they're just
Yes.
like
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
it's just one of those little nagging things.
And any like possible fixes that they can do is pretty quick to do as well.
Oh, I can't wait to see
Yeah.
the new stuff coming down the pipe, man.
Yeah.
It's gonna be
Yeah.
awesome.
And you know what? So and I'm gonna give you my format, because when I print out my price sheet, it's in order. So what I do, and it's not gonna work for everybody, but what I do is year, clutch, and hatching number from that clutch.
That's what I do.
So I do 24, like let's say 24 dash 1 1, and I actually add like dash M or F. And on my price sheet, it's in order. Even like my 23 whole like stuff that I have from next year, it gives a 23 first.
I just haven't had, and
Yeah.
Liddell would fix that. I just haven't had time to
Yeah.
submit a ticket on that yet. Everything, I will say this, every ticket I've ever submitted has been resolved within 24 hours. I mean, it's amazing how fast they respond to that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. But
Yeah.
it just, honestly, it hasn't been that important to me. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? If it was, I'd be bugging them about it. It's
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
it's just when a show's coming up and I'm doing that. And as we, like I said, as we trend more for Colubrids, so like for Tinley, the sword is easy. You
Mhm.
just go price high to low, and how many
Mhm.
do I want to take? And if I'm taking 70, I'm taking the 70 that are priced the highest because that's what the
For
clientele
that
at
show,
Tinley
yeah.
is looking for
Yeah.
that show.
Yeah.
If I'm going to a smaller show, then I want to take a variety of different project animals and stuff like that. And then with the hognose, no more than I have for sale. I just kind of try to take them all. But I mean, does it make sense to take 17 Superconda Pos triple het hypos nose? Yeah, I mean, probably not. I mean, I'm probably not going to sell that many. So, we get a little selective there too. But
Yeah.
man, I'm so digging the variety, and the hognose they're just a neat species. I mean, they
They
really
are.
are. Like,
They are.
I mean,
And you
everything.
mentioned something very unique, I think, within the hognose world, where the polygenic and line bred traits have been bred in so well that it makes a difference in even like the co-doms, incomplete dominance, the correct way to say it.
Yeah,
The incomplete
exactly. We all call them codons, but
Yeah, so
go
like the
ahead.
incomplete dominance and we call it the recessive color morphs and all that stuff, it makes a difference.
Oh, it
um
does. Look at John's red line of my ties. I mean, that's
mhm
amazing. You know what I mean? And
mhm
that's something that's polygenic. I mean,
mhm
the uh, what's Jeff's new
the
symphony?
symphony,
You
yeah.
know what I mean? That causes the striping and all that. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a really neat polygenic.
Yeah.
The thing about polygenics, and the thing that's important with hognose, that a lot of people, and I may have a lot of ball python breeders here. I don't know. I posted this in all my discords and
mhm
everything, so hopefully people showed up. But the with ball pythons, I can breed siblings and then their offspring. I mean, like there's really no end of the line because they live in such a small area in the wild. I assume this. I'm not a scientist. I don't know this is a fact, but this is what I believe to be true. Is that they live in such a small geographic area that there's so much natural breeding, inbreeding
mhm
basically, that the species has evolved to be able to tolerate that. Excuse me, I'm getting a drink. But with the line bred traits, you know, it's even more of a challenge because you have to outcross that, right?
yeah
So it's important to have, and I'm really big about having. I always like to support smaller breeders, but
mhm
at the same time, I like to have a group of trusted breeders that I know I can go to for anything,
yes
and not have to buy from many unknown sources. That's
yes
that's just
yeah
that's just the way I like to do it. I know a lot of people would say, "Well, that shuts me out. That shuts me out." Well, no, it doesn't. Let's get to know each other, and then
yeah
maybe,
correct
maybe
correct
we can
yeah
get there. I mean, before we met at Dallas, I didn't know who. Yeah, I
yeah
mean, I had heard of you. I'd heard Zach
mhm
talk about you. I'd seen you on the Husbandry Pro stuff, stuff like that. But but being able to see your stuff and talk to you in person and meet your family. I mean, that kind of stuff is what, shows, it shows who's, good people. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
I feel like you're a really good person. And I
I
picked up my
appreciate it.
first snake from you not long
Yeah,
ago.
yeah.
And it was, and she's doing great.
I
You
think
know,
that's good to
she,
hear.
she, yeah, she comes at me mouth open every time I open the tub, and that's what I
Uh,
like to see.
that's a good breeder there, you know.
but but no, I mean, it's, with the line bred traits, you can't do that with hognose.
Hmm.
It's just like with the growing them. I mean, I've got so many female ball pythons that breed and lay a clutch of 8 to 12 eggs before they turn 2 years old.
Hmm.
And I'm not power feeding these snakes. I'm just feeding them African soft furs instead of rats, and I'm feeding them on a weekly basis. And they're actually getting a smaller feeder than they would with the rats.
Okay.
But when the my son sent a text, I forgot to turn my do not disturb on. But with the hognose, I think one of the mistakes I made that probably led to my egg binding issues was not feeding them too much. It was feeding too large of a prey item.
Yes.
Because you think about what to try to think how to say this best. You think about all the different colubrids you have: king snakes, corn snakes, bull snakes, pine snakes, milk snakes, gopher snakes, all
Hmm.
these things. The general rule of thumb is you feed them a prey item large enough to leave a noticeable lump.
Yeah.
And, same thing with a juvenile ball python, with the hognose snakes, that's not the case. You really don't want to see a noticeable lump. I mean, you want to, I think, most people that I've talked to stick to around roughly 10% of the body weight for
Yeah.
the young ones. And
Yeah.
then that caps out at about 20, 22 grams. So
Yeah.
even if I have a 300 or 400 gram female, it's still just getting a 20 to 22 gram,
Yeah.
bionate dusted mouse per week,
Hmm.
and I was feeding some 35 and 40 gram mice to my bigger girls because I never asked the question, am I feeding too large?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the way Jeff explained that to me was he's like, they weren't obese. He's like, you weren't really, he said you were and you weren't overfeeding them at the same time. He's like, you were doing a good regimen. He said, but you were just feeding too large of a prey item. So he said those 2-year-old girls that lay, because I mean, he said he said if I have a girl that's 160, 170 grams going into her second winter, he said I'm always going to brumate her a breeder.
Hmm.
He said I may only get 6 or 7 eggs, but that primes her oviduct to be able to handle those bigger clutches later on. He
Hmm.
said what I think happened was they grew too big for the clutches, so their body's telling them I can handle this 28 egg clutch, but their oviduct's saying no, you can't.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's kind of what happened there. So I learned a valuable lesson there about keeping them a little more lean.
Hmm.
And that's actually poured over into my other species, and I think
Yeah.
I've seen better results this year by feeding lighter than I would have before.
Yeah.
Uh,
One thing
and
I've told any my friends or customers that have gotten hog nose either from me or from someone other source is I know sounds like remember they're not ball pythons, they're not rounded animals fully. I go it's like if you can with the hog nose, I go a good way to see once you start feeding them like first of all 10% of their body weight, it's a good medium, a good standard to feed them. But I go if you can see that nice like cut down their belly, that flat belly, it's perfect. They're good at that weight and stuff like that. Once you start seeing the little, edge start rounding off, back off a little bit on the
yeah,
food.
and the
And
scale spread,
in the
you
scale
can
spread,
start
yep.
because
Mm-hmm.
they will literally eat until you stop feeding
Oh
them. I
yeah.
mean, if you they're once they get established, I don't understand anybody having the opinion that hognose are problem feeders. I mean, because
Yeah.
my gosh, I mean they just aren't.
Mm-hmm.
I took little babies out of the pencil tubs, my whole backs. Well, I'd say little babies. They'd had 15 meals probably, and moved them over to my 130, my mini 130s. And I've got one that I had to scent to get started in there that only
Mm-hmm.
had 7 or 8 unscented meals. That kind of was like, I'm not sure I like this. So I threw some little PVC tubes in there for
Mm-hmm.
them to have something to crawl through and everything. That was a Tom Harbin trick he taught me. But the uh, but that she went back to feeding just fine after I gave her a couple more scented. But yeah, I mean, once they're established, man, they're pretty much good. And
Yes.
you know, when you think about the natural range of the Western or Plains hognose, same thing. You know, you're talking North Texas all the way to southern Canada.
Mm-hmm.
So think about the climate range, you know, in
Yep.
there. So I mean, they can do well in a wide variety of settings and temperatures
Yeah.
where, you know, ball pythons and even some of the milk snakes and stuff like that have a little bit more of a, you know, a tropical type need, you know, for
Mm-hmm.
that high humidity and high temperature, where, you know, you can, you know, as long as the hognose has got somewhere warm to digest its meal and it's got
Yeah.
proper security,
Yep.
they're
Yeah.
probably going to do just fine for you. And
Yeah.
that makes it a wonderful pet. And that's
It does.
what I've always struggled with this question, because I don't believe that a ball python makes a good first pet snake. I've said
Hmm.
that for a long time. I mean, because, you know, unless you really are willing to accept the fact that, you know, your snake may decide just to go off food for a good amount of time, you know, I mean, that kind of stuff. You know, they're not a good display snake. They don't do well in, you know, clear, you know, I mean, you
Yes.
can't just throw an aquarium in the living room and pop a light on top of it and, you know, have all that stuff. They're not a good display animal. You know, I know there's varying opinions about rat keeping and stuff like that, but I mean, I've kept them every way, and I can tell you from years and years of experience that I've never seen them do as well as they do in these great times. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you know, because they're secure. It's more like they are in the wild. You know, they do get some light cycle in the wild. I mean, I've got a window in my room, you know, that I don't cover up, you know, so I let the light come in, and there's holes in the top of them. I believe they get, you know, some secondary light through there. But I mean, we had our air conditioner go out, and this was kind of neat because I'm gonna put an air conditioner in here. I think the room was getting too hot, and even though it was only getting to 81 or 82, which is what a lot of people keep their room, the uh, there was a natural drop because our air conditioner was out and they had to order a part, so it was like a week before it was going to come in. Well,
Okay.
it was getting in the, you know, upper 80s during the day, but it was in the upper 60s at night. But we had the windows open in all the rooms, and we've got an attic fan that, like, you know, it'll exchange all the air in the house
Mm-hmm.
like 3 times a minute. I mean, it's crazy. Like, it'll blow the curtains completely out, you know, horizontal if we don't tie them down. And I had the windows open in this snake room and the hognose room and everything, just to keep the air flowing and circulating so they didn't get too hot during the day. And, you know, these rooms would get to 84, 85 during the day, but they would get down to 70, 74 at night.
Yeah.
And I had my best feedings during that time
In
because there
all
were
species.
all species. Like, I mean,
Interesting.
honestly, the colubrids, I couldn't tell a difference because they
Yeah.
always eat anyway.
Yeah.
But in the ball python, it's probably the first time I've ever had close to 90% of my adult ball pythons eat on the same day. So I think what I'm going to do when we go into next summer, because we're already good right now, you know, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we're getting down in the 40s at night now, and you know, I mean, it's going to cool it off in here, and it'll create that natural variant because I
Yeah.
don't have any external, you know, the vents are covered up in here, so there's no air conditioning coming into here. There's no heat coming into here unless I hook up heat. There's so much heat tape in this room and the room where the hognose are that I don't really need to heat the room. They're in an internal insulated room, you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Unless it gets down to, I mean, really cold for a long period of time, I won't even plug in a heater in here this winter,
Yeah.
you know, and let it get cooler at night, and then it'll heat up during the day, and then they do better. I think next summer I'm going to put an air conditioner in here just literally to run at night. Like, you know, I put it on a, you know, put it on some kind of a cycle somehow, a timer or
Yeah.
something like that, where, you know, it'll drop the room down to maybe 70 or 72 at night, but then let it get back up into the 80s during the day, because that constant temperature, I've seen, you know, I saw a big difference then. It may be anecdotal because it's a small sample size, but
Mm-hmm.
man, it sure was apparent because I had snakes that hadn't eaten in 3 months that were coming out of the tub at me. You know, I mean, and it's
Interesting.
like,
Yeah.
you know, so you learn those little things sometimes by accident. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, I learned how to properly feed hognose by accident. It cost me 3 good breeders, and man, I mean, I take it hard when I lose an animal. I mean, because
Mm-hmm.
I know every one of my animals. That's, you know, people are like, how can you take care of that many snakes? I'm like, I mean, you ask me which snake it is, and I will tell you where it is and what room, when the last time it ate. I mean, I know my animals,
Yeah.
but that just comes from, you know, this is pretty much all I do. I mean, you know, I do the work for work, but man, I mean, I was in my rodent room this morning at 6 o'clock,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't even log into work to start working till 8:30. I got that stuff done and everything, got finished with the rodent room, and then I had to start pulling feeders, and we
Yeah.
labeled displays last night because I had to back up and punt. I had everything done. And then I get the text from Potter, hey, you got a second table. I'm like, okay, well, we got to back up and punt here, and then I didn't find out until Sunday afternoon we couldn't take the hot nose. So we had to prepare for taking them, and we had to
Mm.
prepare for not taking them. Because
Yeah.
Potter was like, "Oh yeah, they can get it," and then Scott was like, "Oh, he'll tell you anything. He'll tell you what you want to hear." He's like, "But that's it." He's like, "It ain't happening."
Yeah.
But we're hopefully we'll keep that second table into the spring and get permitted, and start to be able to bring stuff because it's just going to get better from here.
Mm-hmm.
The first few years of the ball pythons, we kept everything good and just sold the byproduct pretty much. Didn't really make much. It was mostly pet level stuff, and that's kind of where we are in the hognose this year. But it's just going to get better as each year passes, and it's going to get to a point where we're just gonna. I mean, I'm going to kind of figure out how many I want to make, and then go from there.
Yeah. So you're gonna definitely gear towards the higher end projects for at least ball pythons and hognose, right?
Yeah, I think so. Mostly on the hognose. I mean, there's always going to be enough byproduct there
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of people don't know that, like, with a lot of genes in hognose, breeding visual to visual leads to potentially unhealthy animals. So you want to go visual to het,
Correct.
at best. I mean, you can some of the genes you can do it, but I mean, somehow lavender is one that comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
That you don't ever want to breed.
Mm-hmm.
Visual lavender to visual lavender. So that's one of the things that I've had to kind of learn. One of my AirPods just died. I don't know which one it is.
We can still hear you though,
Okay.
so you're good.
Okay. You can still hear me, so I know
Yeah.
which one to plug in. So I've got that one charging now. But but yeah, it's just so different. I would say anyone that I'm very lucky to have the mentors I have in hognose, and I don't care how experienced you are. I mean, like I said, I've been doing this a long time. But when you start
Mm-hmm.
working with a new species, get to know someone who has worked with that species for a good amount of time and been successful with it, because you cannot replace the experience that a mentor can pass on to you. And that's what Josh and Alicia have been to me,
Yeah.
and that they've really helped more than like I can even put
Yeah.
into words. And
Yeah.
in the time in that period, we've become really, really good friends too.
Yeah.
So
And then from them, you're also getting Tom's experience that he poured into them. So it's a
yeah,
downfall from there, like, passing on the information. And, there, once I met them in person and stuff like that and had them on a podcast, and they're one of my favorite people in the reptile community,
oh,
because they're
we
so
just love them.
welcoming, you know?
Well, we were texting with them this past weekend. Saturday night, we went out to eat, and Alicia's sister showed up at the bar. They've tailgated with us before,
Mm,
but we were sitting at our restaurant and bar that we go to pretty much every Saturday night for date night, and we'd had a couple beers, we'd eaten dinner and everything, and we were literally getting ready to tab out, and they showed up to watch the Tennessee game. So we're like, oh, we're gonna have to stay now. So we ended up Ubering home,
nice.
but we were texting pictures to Alicia and stuff like that. I told her the next day, I said, my headache is your sister's fault.
That's good.
But we
Yeah.
we had a good time, and it's just such a fun community, and just such good people. I mean, there's bad
Hmm.
apples in every community,
For
I
sure. For
mean,
sure.
but I like to feel like in the hognose community, they're a little further between than
Yeah.
they are
Yeah.
in a lot,
Yeah.
because
And I tell people, it's like, there's not as many, so there's less egos, less friction between people. Hopefully it stays the way it is because of the culture where, excuse me,
oh,
the
bless you.
culture where thank you, we're bringing up within, and what I tell people is like, I've tuned in to a lot of the ball python specific content and all that stuff because I want to learn the goods and bads of the ball python world. Because the ball python community was the trailblazer to, most of the species where we're at now, right? Um, you know, so I like to see both, and hopefully, with learning from what we can learn from the other ball python communities, goods and bads, we can foster a better community, a welcoming community in the hognose. And I think so far, from being a newer person into the hog nose, I have nothing bad to say.
Oh
You
man,
know.
yeah, and like, and I don't want to, and I want to downplay a little bit even the ball python community. Some of
Mm-hmm.
my best friends I met in the
Mm-hmm.
ball python community. Some of the best people I've met are in the ball python
Mm-hmm.
community. It's just so big
Yes.
that that when you go when you go to a show, like take Dallas for instance.
Mm-hmm.
How many tables had hognose? Maybe 10. I
Maybe.
mean,
Yeah. Yep.
eight or 10 tables in the entire place.
Mm-hmm.
We had them. Delta was there. You had them.
Mm-hmm.
Eslin was there.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. But how many tables have ball pythons? So it's so
Yeah.
ultra competitive that it lends itself to being, you hear this term a lot, but a race toward the bottom. I mean, it's like,
Yes.
you
Yeah.
know, everybody trying to undercut everybody and, sell as cheap as you can and stuff like that. Where now, these are animals. I mean, like we need to remember that no matter what species you're working with,
Mm-hmm.
they're not just a commodity. And I've been guilty of that myself. And it's something that in the last 4 or 5 years, I've really come around to having a totally different opinion, because I remember the very first podcast I did was with John Feely. And it was at my first show in Arlington. And it wasn't even really a podcast, it was just a show spot. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But I remember making the comment that the worst advice that anybody can give someone is to breed what you like, because that's a recipe for being unsuccessful if you are going to operate as a business model, because you need to breed what is sought after more so than necessarily what you like. And I've done a complete 180 in the last 5 years on that. I think it's key to breed what you like,
Yes.
because it's so cyclical, like we talked about earlier, that everything is going to come back around. There is absolutely nothing wrong with doing this for a profit as long as the animals are getting the proper care, the customers are getting the proper care, and that sort of thing. I mean, that's the American dream, right? Like, doing
Mm-hmm.
what you love and making a living doing it. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. But man, there's so many people that think this is easy, and I would invite any of them to walk 1 week in my shoes. You know what I mean? To just spend 1 week with me. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Get up Monday morning, feed a bunch of ball pythons, go clean 70 something rat tubs. You know what I mean? Then get in the shower just in time for, your wife to have dinner ready and sit down and watch TV for an hour before you pass out from being exhausted.
Yeah.
Then get up the next morning and do the other half of the rodent room. Go feed your hatchlings, go feed your pyros. And the pyros are a little bit trickier than the hognose are to get eating, because they're hardcore lizard eaters.
Yeah.
I've got 9 out of 17 eating great, but I mean, some of them I have to boil their pinkies, which is pretty time consuming.
Yeah.
To have to boil them, because that gets all the mouse scent off of them, because they, in the wild, they are instinctually stay away from mice, because this is a tiny 5 or 6 gram slender, like a skinny pencil
Mm-hmm.
diameter snake. It crawls into a mouse nest, and adult mouse, one bite, and it's dead.
It's good. Yeah. It's getting
I
messed
mean,
up.
and
Yeah.
so that they eat small lizards and stuff like that. That's one of my people are like, "What do you want to pick up at Tinley?" I said, "An anole." Like, if I can find an anole, that's the one thing. I just need to find some kind of lizard to scent with to get these other
Yeah.
7 eating, or I'm going to have to brumate them too. And then once they come out of brumation, usually they'll start eating.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but yeah, I mean, it's just cool, man. It's just
Yeah.
it's fun.
And
It's
with all those hours you're putting in and stuff like that, you need to have that. Okay, do what you enjoy, breed what you enjoy. If not, it becomes like you said, that that only chore, or like, oh man, today I gotta get up and I gotta clean tubs, or today I gotta do something with the animals.
oh
Um,
yeah.
and that's one thing that, since I'm still growing my collection, I'm still like trying to figure out what's gonna be that magic number for me, and within my time frame. Same thing, keeping the family time.
And
Like
that's
tonight.
sacred, man. You can't
Yeah.
you can't give that up.
Yep.
That's something that I tell people pretty much from 7 to 10 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
That's the time that I'm going to spend with my family. I mean,
Correct.
I do a few podcasts, I do stuff like that.
Yeah.
There's times I have to do a little chore here and there, but it's, for the most part, that's the time that, my wife and we're empty nested now. It's just the two
Mm-hmm.
of us here. We've got our TV shows we watch, we've got our, stuff like that. And,
Yeah.
when we eat dinner and we watch our shows, we like to kick our feet up and,
Yeah.
relax,
Yep.
and that's why I get up early, because I'd rather start early and finish early than I
Mm-hmm.
would start late and then cut into that family time, because that's sacred.
Yeah.
Recharges me for the next day.
Yeah.
But I mean, there is so much easier ways to make the level of money that we make doing this,
Yes.
that it
Yeah.
has to be a passion. If it's not a
Yeah.
passion,
Yeah. Yeah.
don't do it. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And that's what I would caution anyone that's listening is, number one, just because you have snakes does not mean you have to breed them. It's not a prerequisite to owning snakes. There's
Correct.
so many
Yeah.
people that feel like, well, I have two snakes, I must breed them,
No, you
and
don't. Yeah.
then they're like, well, why can't I sell the babies? Well, I mean, because number one, nobody knows you. You're not really trying. You don't have any online accounts. You don't have any digital
Mm-hmm.
marketing experience. You're not doing any shows. Who are you going to sell them to? You
Yes.
know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
you have to have a market for that. And that's the one thing, where we talked about the rebranding. That's the one thing that's a little bit scary for me, is because we are known for ball pythons. Like that's how everyone
Yeah.
knows us.
Yeah.
So, how
And
do
you know what?
we
I'm really glad that you brought up Dallas and that you sold ball pythons but no hognose. You know,
yeah,
and
not one.
yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because some other people could have said, yeah, I sold this many ball pythons and I sold this many hognose, right? Just to fake the funk and try to keep up the what's called the image
Oh, the
of what
image
you
of
have going on.
success and that kind of stuff. And that,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm man, one thing I'm going to be honest, to a fault. Like, I mean, even if it pisses somebody off, if
Mm-hmm.
you ask me a question, you better be ready for the truth, because I'm not going to not tell you the truth.
Yeah.
And, and if another thing about Dallas is, if we would not have brought the adult ball pythons,
Mm-hmm.
our show total would have been $250, because
Wow.
I sold one Mexican pine. And other than that, the rest of it was the adult ball pythons. We brought 27, we sold 21 of them.
Wow.
So I mean, that if we wouldn't have brought those, we would have really came home with our tail tucked, because I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's a 13-hour drive each way. And, we wouldn't have even come close to covering expenses. And
Mm-hmm.
instead, we had an extremely profitable show,
Mm-hmm.
but and it seems to work like that at most shows we do. I mean, we generally do well, but I think a lot of that just comes from interacting with people, because
Yes.
people don't,
Yeah.
I mean, how many times have you seen that? Especially if you do the smaller shows, how many times do you see somebody sitting behind their table in a chair on their phone, not even looking up, like they're
Oh, all the
waiting for
time. Yeah.
somebody to ask them to sell them a snake,
Yeah. Yep.
and everybody that walks up to my table, they hear the same thing. I get so tired of saying this sometimes, but I say it every time. Hey, how you guys doing? Enjoying the show? My name's Brian. If you need anything
Mm-hmm.
at all, just let me know.
Yeah.
I mean, and just and I have people every show, multiple people. They're like, "Thank you for telling me your name." Nobody seems to introduce themselves anymore, And I want to start a conversation with them. What kind of projects are you working?
Yes.
Well, we're just
Yeah.
looking for a pet. Okay, awesome. What are you looking
Yeah.
for in your next pet? And sometimes I'll even do a demonstration for them. I did this in Dallas a couple of times, and I didn't end up selling them, but I've done it at other shows. They're like, well, is a ball python a good pet? And I
Mm-hmm.
explained to them, well, what are you looking for out of your pet?
Yes.
We'd like to put something to put in a nice terrarium in the living room for people to see. I'm like, then no, probably not. I mean, you can make that work, but when we're dealing with an animal, do we want to make it work, or do we want to give them the optimum environment to thrive?
Yeah.
I feel like we should be giving them I feel
Yeah.
like we have a responsibility to give them
Yeah.
the optimum environment to thrive.
And one of the
So
biggest things too is like listening to the person that's sitting in front of you that's going to buy this animal instead of you trying to steer them to what you have and what you're trying to move.
oh,
And I've done it before. I don't
I
have it on
walk
my
people to other
table.
tables. I walk
A
people to
hundred
other
percent.
tables all the time. I walk
Mm-hmm.
people to Josh and Alicia's table at every show
Yep.
that we're together before I had hog nose, and even
Mm-hmm.
after I had hog nose. If they say, "Hey, I'm looking for this," I
Yeah.
think I may know who has it. Let's
Yeah.
walk over here. Or Tom's table. At the
Mm-hmm.
shows that we did together, I walk people over to there. If I don't have the ball python they're looking for, I'm gonna try to tell them who does. I mean,
Correct.
it's
Correct. Yeah.
because if they're looking for something pet level, I know the breeders that are there that are that have the pet stuff, the $150, $200 snakes that people are looking for as a pet. And I know the people who have the high end stuff. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we're all in this together, and I wish more people would treat it that way, because
Yeah.
it doesn't matter if you're breeding ball pythons, hognose, bearded dragon. I mean, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We're all part of one bigger community, and I wish some people would remember that more,
Hmm.
and kind of go out of their way to make it a better community instead of a more contentious community.
Yeah, yeah, and I think I think we're trending that way too, where more of the breed what you like, breed for that passion. As it trends more towards that way, I think it's gonna get better as well. You
Oh
know.
yeah, I think it will, and I think as more people diversify,
Mm.
you're going to see more people learning more, and that's not knowledge is the root of everything,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, once you have the knowledge of what you're doing, what you want to do, where you want to go, and how
Yeah.
you get there,
Yeah.
once you have all that down, it's just a matter of execution. How am I going to execute this? Can I execute this? There's so many questions people don't ask, and you see people with I haven't seen it much in the hognose community because it just doesn't happen very often. But in the ball python community right now, like there's people selling out left and right,
Mm-hmm.
because they bought in right before COVID because they were expecting to get those COVID prices, and then once the prices normalized,
Yeah.
they're like, well, this is not worth it for me anymore.
Yeah.
Or they've bred the same thing. Like one of the mistakes I see a lot of people make pretty much across every species is they make all these awesome animals and they sell all their best animals, but then the next year they make all these awesome animals and they sell their best animals, but the next year they're not awesome animals anymore because they
Yeah.
didn't hold back the best to build on their own
Yeah.
projects. They're just
Yeah.
making the same thing year after year after year.
Yeah. And you know
And
what? I tell people all the time, I made that mistake last year. I was such in a hurry to sell my first hog nose that I made, I'll say maybe two or three that I should have kept back. This year, I'm keeping back whatever I think I'm keeping back. And when they sell, if I decide that I don't want to keep it, then they'll sell.
oh
You
yeah,
know,
and a
Eh,
35, 40 gram snake's going to sell faster than a 10, 12
correct.
gram snake too.
Correct.
So it's the
Yeah.
same way with ball pythons. I mean, if you look around, I mean, you see there's a lot of empty tubs in here.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like I'm not in a strap for space. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
If somebody doesn't want to, pay a reasonable market value for something,
Yes.
I don't have any problem letting it get bigger and then let the size sell it, because
Correct.
that does work. I mean, I kept 18 22s
Mm-hmm.
females and raised them up to be 12, 1300 grams,
Yeah.
listed them for twice as much as I had them listed for as babies, and sold all of them in a 2 month period.
Yeah.
Because people were, it's the impatience. People don't want to wait.
Yeah.
I like to buy babies. I very rarely buy adults. I know I was just
Mm-hmm.
telling you about the 2 adults I bought from Jeff, but that's kind of an anomaly, and that's a good person to buy adults from.
Yeah.
But I'm very picky about buying adults, because
Mm-hmm.
my question when you're buying an adult is, why are you getting rid of it? Now, I've got the answer to that when somebody asks me that question, because I mean, I'm reducing my collection to make room for the other stuff I'm working with.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm letting go of stuff I probably should have project wise let go of 2 or 3 years ago.
Mm.
But I had the space, I had the feeders, I had the time, so
There was no push to move
yeah,
them. Yeah.
yeah. Well, and Justin Kaboka said it one time before too. He's like, there's never a good reason to move a producing female adult ball python.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
because you can always have a male to put with her to make a good ROI clutch.
Yeah.
But it's to me now it's more about, does it advance my projects or not?
Mm-hmm.
If it doesn't advance my projects, then I don't want to breed it anymore.
Yeah.
Uh,
And you
just
mentioned something about like moving maybe certain ball pythons sooner. Was there a gene that you got into and that you regret getting into, or that didn't do what you thought it was going to do in your collection
yeah,
at least?
yeah, probably lavender albino probably comes to mind.
Okay.
It's one of the it's a beautiful snake. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's great, but by the time I got into it with the intention of moving everything toward Dreamsicle projects, which is
Mm-hmm.
lavender albino piebald, and I had such bad luck with odds that I never made anything. I mean, all I was making was pretty much just cool lavender albinos, and
Mm-hmm.
it just never did anything for me. So I've bred my last lavender albino. Everything in lavender I'm selling this year. And then, to be honest with you, I'm cutting way back on piebald, which a lot of people might say that's crazy, but I feel like piebald is one of those genes that looks really cool, but to me, it's really hard to express additional genetics in the piebald
Mm-hmm.
beyond the few that we've already done and are becoming very commonplace.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm working piebald in several double and triple recessive projects, but as far as just making single recessive pieds with, 2 and 3 codons and stuff like that, I'm not, I'm not going to do that anymore. I mean,
Okay.
that's, it's a, and it just comes down to time, space, and honestly, now what makes me happy. It's not even about the money. It's about
Yeah.
what makes me happy. I mean, I'll be 55 in February. I mean, I'm not old, but I'm not a spring chicken anymore either.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and and I don't foresee myself doing this at this level. Maybe another 10, 12 years, and then at that point, my plan is to really cut back to what means the most to me. And I have a feeling at the end of the day, that's going to be the pits and the hognose. I think I would be very surprised if 10 years from now I'm producing anything other than hognose and pituophis.
That's a, and that's a, you're like you said, you're at that age where to you is a closer, what's it called, end goal to get to that point than than some of the people that are getting into that are maybe younger or want to be keep doing this for a longer time period, because that's a very good, I think, a very topic that I think that even people that are younger should maybe eventually see, okay, 30, 40 years from now, what species do I really want to have? What animals do I really want to still work with as just pure, just working with animals, nothing financially, no financial gains or no breeding and stuff like that, whatever I just want to keep, you know?
Oh yeah, and if there was no money involved whatsoever, and it wasn't about paying bills, and it was just about the animals,
Mm-hmm.
I would have hognose and pits now and nothing else. To be honest with you, I mean, it's not that I don't enjoy the balls at all,
Mm-hmm.
but they're more of a business thing. It's more about what can I make. But
Mm-hmm.
in terms of interaction, I mean, there is nothing like going and grabbing one of my 6, 7 foot bulls out, just hissing and
Yeah.
freaking putting on that big display. There's nothing like grabbing a baby hognose out of a tub and having it play dead in the palm of your hand.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's just such a cool thing. And like when I go to feed the hognose, I mean, they almost seem like they're more intelligent than the other species I have too, because they know immediately, when I'm feeding and when I'm not. It seems like the adults
Mm-hmm.
anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And they just kind of come up and gently take that mouse out of my hand. Like, I don't even use tongs anymore, except for a couple of crazy ones, but for the most part, I just feed them with my hand. They
Mm-hmm.
just come up and just gently take it out of my hand. And
Yeah.
then I keep on coarse Santa chips, like probably 90% of the hog-nosed breeders do. But the, I cut pieces of cardstock, and
Yeah.
before I feed, and I've got that, and then I'll just lay them down on the cardstock, so I can hopefully keep bedding off of it as much as possible. Now they're going to
Mm-hmm.
drag it all over the damn place
Oh
anyway,
yeah,
but
yeah.
it
I did a switch to Coco Core and to Coco Core, and that's been one of the thing I enjoy the most, where I can give the mouse, and it doesn't matter if they drag it into it, they can still so fine that it's not going to cause an issue, because that trying to keep, because before that, I was doing, what's it called, shaved aspen, and I do it for my stuff that I'm selling, just because it'll be easier for somebody to transfer into shaved aspen. But for my keepers, I do coco core, um, like the really fine coco core, and when I had the shaved aspen for the adults, it's like, man,
like
trying to
you would
get
use in a lay box, like Eco Earth, that kind
Yep,
of
yep,
thing.
yep. I do
Okay.
the whole lay bin. The whole bin is just that. Yeah.
Okay. See, I did that with one last year that
Mm.
would not stay in her lay box.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no matter what I did, she would not stay in her lay
Mm-hmm.
box. And I asked Alicia, I said, Alicia, what do I do? I mean, this girl's 12 days post, pre-lay shed, and
Yeah.
she's cruising around the tub. I can direct her into the lay box. She'll get in there for a minute. The next day I come up and she's laying behind it or under it or,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. She said, hell, I'd just make the whole tub into a lay
Yeah.
box. So I hydrated a bunch of Eco Earth and put it in there and everything. And sure enough, like 2 days later, I came in
She
and
felt
there's
comfortable
14
enough.
nice eggs, laying
Yeah.
there. And she just looks up at me like, thank you, So I just left it that way until she laid her second clutch. And,
Yeah.
second clutch was only like 8. But one thing that told me a lot last year, too, when back on the subject of feeding and overfeeding versus not, was, I've got one girl had terrible odds on this clutch. I'll tell you about those in a second, but it was worst odds I've ever had on any clutch. But the she was kind of an iffy feeder. Like she would eat most of the time, but she wanted a much smaller mouse than what I felt like she should be eating. I mean, she was 170, 180 grams. She was eating like a 10, 12 gram mouse at most. If I put anything any bigger than that in there, she's just like, nope, not going to eat it.
Yeah.
And she came out of brumation at like 188 grams. And I was like, man, I'm not sure if I should breed her. She's 3. She's got good body girth and everything, good, plenty of room at the vent. I think she'll be okay. And she produced, I hatched 83 hognose last year. She produced 25 of them. She gave me 15 in her first clutch and 10 in her second clutch, all 100% hatch rate. Went right back on food. Like, it was as perfect as it could go. Now, what wasn't perfect is this was and I'm not sure, like, I don't know, it's kind of a weird project. It was a Super Conda triple het hypo snow to another Super Conda triple het hypo snow. So my thought process was I'm going to get a bunch of different color Super Condas. It's going to be cool, right? So out of 25 eggs, I got 4 albino Super Condas and 21 Super Conda triple hets. I didn't hit a single exanthic. I didn't hit a single hypo. And these are John Rice snakes. I mean, there's no doubt. There's no doubt in my mind the heads are there.
Yeah.
And I think a couple of the albinos may be hybinos, but I mean,
they're so hard to tell.
I don't have any way to tell that. I mean, so I'm just, as far as they're listed, they're albinos, albino 66% het snow, or albino 66% het hypo exanthic. And John said, wait, next year you'll probably get a buttload of exanthics and not, I was hoping to at least get a couple of super yetis in there because those are pretty popular, popular in the market. So, but yeah, no, I'm cornering the market on regular Super Condas this year. So if anybody out there needs Super Condas, give me a yell. We'll work a deal.
Well, it's funny because I had similar situation last year. I had a female. She laid 2 clutches last year, and she's an Arctic Conda, het albino, 66 frost, so 66 for hypo and caramel. And last year, no hypo, no caramels. This year, I got hypos. And this year I got 1 clutch from her, and I got hypos. So I was like, okay, now you're ahead. And same thing last year.
Next year it'll be all caramel.
yeah. And then same thing for another permafrost project female. Last year I got sables, no hypos, and this year I got hypos. So it's
crazy how odds work, man. And then like I said, now transpose that over 25 eggs, and I missed 2 out of 3 of the recessives head to head, which and I mean I did have a 40% chance in that pairing of hitting just Super Condas.
Yes.
But I had a 60% chance of hitting something other than a just Super Conda, and I hit those at a rate of about 20%, I think, and not even 20, like 15%.
Yeah.
But but then you have that 6 egg clutch from the Mai Tai pairing that was a visual toffee belly het sable combo to a double head, and hit 3 Mai Tais. Like, I mean, it's just the odds can be cruel somrules, and they can be
sometimes
awesome
that morph market calculator, it
will
will throw you off.
Yeah. Well, it will. Of course, that's over a large sample size too.
Yeah.
Like, you can't. Yeah, I don't even know what type of sample size you would need to see the odds fully realized, but it's got to be significant,
Yeah, I forgot because when the old calculator, it used to tell you like out of so many eggs, this is the ratio. The new one doesn't tell you.
Oh yeah, you used to could put in how big
Correct.
the clutch was and this percentage chance of getting this, and now it's
so that's interesting.
Yeah, a lot of things have gotten, better there, and some things maybe not so much. It's just
Mm-hmm.
hard to. It's, I do miss the old calculator. That was a good
Yeah,
one.
I just remembered that. Yeah, talking about that. you know, and with we're gonna start closing out the episode, but your you mentioned your favorite hognose morph, and you said possibly toffee belly. Would you say that that's your favorite currently, or
No, that was my favorite in the beginning, which is why
okay?
we started with that. I really like the look of Toffee Belly,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean the main reason why was because I love Mai Tais. Like that,
Mm-hmm.
that's one of that. That's probably my favorite. That's probably my favorite double recessive
Yes.
that I've seen. I don't know. Stormcloud's hard to beat too. I mean, it's like, but I
You
really
just put them
like.
together.
Oh
Like
yeah, I really like the reds. I really like the
yeah.
red colors, and stuff like that. And the Mai Tais are really cool. Toxics are really cool,
Mm-hmm.
and Toffee Belly is just a part of the albino complex that's not really full on albino, and it does
Yeah.
such different things. And
Mm-hmm.
but in the beginning, that was the one that really kind of stood out to me. Now, I don't know. I really do like the storm cloud stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I picked up at last spring Arlington. No, the first Dallas show. I caught Tom walking in the door, and I said, "Hey, before you sell any of the storm cloud stuff, yell at me," because I'd had a really good pre-sale for the show, and I had a bunch of cash in my pocket burning a hole. And my wife was like, "I know you're going to spend it. Just go get what you want." So, so I went over and I ended up I bought a Stormcloud male and a Exanthic het sable female and a sable het Exanthic female. And then I ended up getting some snowbird stuff from John
Mm-hmm.
and Jeff because I've found out like it's pretty neat to put together your groups from different people within your
Yes.
trusted circle because then you've got cross blood there. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So you can interchange more of your collection. Like if I
Mm-hmm.
bought everything from John or everything from Jeff or everything from the Harbins or everything from you for that matter,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? I would have to outcross F1. Like as soon as
Yes.
I, had babies, I would have to outcross. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I think like you can probably breed siblings once, you know what I mean? But you would definitely want to outcross after that
Oh, for sure, for sure. Yeah.
because the structure of
And
the
then
animal.
depends on the lineage before that too. So you might
Oh yeah,
even be like be running into like breeding siblings too little too close with especially like the albino complex and stuff that where we're seeing a lot of the bug eyes and stuff like that in the hog nose.
oh yeah, yeah, and you see that you see the little heads and the bug
Mm-hmm.
eyes, and I mean it's and it's something I did not know. And I'll tell you something. This is kind of funny, and I know we need to close out. It's getting late for me
No,
too,
yeah.
but I had hognose for over 3 years
Mm-hmm.
before I realized they didn't have heat pits, and it didn't matter.
All right.
I,
We
I,
didn't have
I
heat
was
pits,
like,
and was that?
I had an alarm go off. It cut me
Oh,
off.
okay.
I didn't realize that hognose didn't care if the food was warm or not. Like I was
Oh,
trying to keep it warm, and like I would for the pythons
yeah.
and stuff like that. And once I figured that out, I'm like, oh, this is so much easier. I could just throw everything out, lay it out on paper towels on the table, and just go for it.
Mm-hmm.
And then some of the stuff that they eat is so damn neat, like chicken hearts, and I mean, you can the way to get them going as babies. I haven't had to resort to that yet.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't had to go past a few live and salmon setting. I haven't even broken out my sardines or tuna or any of the other stuff I bought to set with. Like salmon worked for everything this year.
That's good.
And it's so wild too because you go in and you put that pinky in front of them and they're huffing and puffing and hissing and being pissy and slinging musk all over the place. And you know what I mean? You're like, oh man, how am I going to get you to eat? And then you dip the head in the salmon and you put it in there and they just instantly like go into a trance. Just,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, just open up and just take it. And you're like,
Yeah, they go into that
wow,
frenzy.
it's
Yeah.
just crazy. And then, I'm still working on how to transition them off. Like, the way I did it last time was I would feed them 5, 6, 7 times scented and then just go in there and drop feed unscented and leave it for a couple hours and come back. And, that cut my scented list in half. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that
Yeah.
immediately went off. And then I've got some other stubborn ones, but every one that I'm still sending is all from the same clutch.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's so clutch specific.
And that's another important part about getting good stock from specific, breeders that have a good breeding process and stuff like that, where you get good feeders, you get and that passes on as well too. Um, and that's like my Swiss chocolate. And with being a breeder and being the part process already of establishing picky eaters and stuff like that. When I got my Swiss chocolate from Jeff, the mail I got was, he's like, look, this is the mail I have. This is the only thing I have left, but he's a live feeder, so he's still around. I go, no problem, I can get live. I have a live feeder close to by, so I can get him, and I can transition him right after.
Well, yeah, for a male, like I said, I'm gonna try, but
Mm-hmm.
I've got one. It's just an Arctic toffee belly hat sable that I got from John.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of a utility male because my Arctic Conda is my main male there. But he ended up siring one of the clutches because
Yeah.
I've still got one of the het toffee belly females that doesn't have any other heads. So I can use either one for that. But he's crazy. Like, I mean, every time I open his tub, he's just slinging stuff and jerking around and everything. And I tried to transition him and tried to transition him, and it just doesn't work. The only way I can get him to eat is before I even start feeding everybody, before I even start pulling feeders out of the freezer. I go out to the room, I grab a little mouse hopper or ASF hopper, like a little
Mm-hmm.
crawler, eyes just open kind of thing. And I walk into the room without turning the light on and just slide his tub open and drop it in. And then I go start pulling my feeders, thaw them out and everything. And by the time I get up there to start feeding everybody else, he's eating 9 times out of 10. So I'm
Yeah.
like, it's not big enough to hurt him, so I'm not sweating it. And then
Mm-hmm.
I've got a coral that I got from Jeff that I had a really hard time getting that male going. And I actually ended up, he gave me a smoking good deal on an Arctic coral because he felt bad because I bought a group and I just didn't happen to see on Morph Market that this one was a live feeder.
Mm-hmm.
And it just wasn't feeding for me. And this was before I had mice. I was trying to feed it ASF hoppers or ASF pinkies, and it just wasn't having it. It was like done. And then I got a couple of mouse colonies from Josh and Alicia. And then as soon as I started producing pinkies at a high rate, now he's putting on weight, eating and everything, but I can drop a frozen thaw in there and leave it overnight. And he's like, nah,
No,
not
it's not
not not
happening.
not not having it.
Yeah.
I mean, if Jeff couldn't convert him, I mean, how am I going to? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's, a process like that not too many people bring up. It's, switching either from live to scented to unscented. And it is a process. I'll tell people that, when you have 100 plus hognose that you're feeding, and you gotta maybe scent 10 of them, which is not many out of 100. But let's say you got to scent, it does take a little extra time to be able to do that, right?
Well, it
um
does, and it's also leaving them on the shelf because I'm not going to advertise something for sale
Correct.
that's scented.
Correct.
And but what's funny about that one clutch is, it's actually that one I was talking about that wasn't the best feeder herself, like the
Mm-hmm.
mom. And when I first got her from John, she was like 9 grams,
Mm-hmm.
and it was the smallest one in the entire group. And when I put her in the tub, she didn't eat for like the first 4 or 5 weeks. And I mean, I know to give them time. Like, I'm not going to
Mm-hmm.
sweat it immediately. They're not going to waste away to nothing. It's not a dog. And so I called John. I was like, man, what? He said, well, I had her on salmon scented for a while, but she had like 8 meals, unscented. He said, you might try a salmon scented. I just got some salmon and dipped a little bit of the head in it and put it in there, and she ate it. And then the very next week, she ate unscented. But
Yeah.
now her offspring are doing the same thing, and it's
Interesting.
just funny how that relates because I've heard
Yes.
that from a
Yeah.
lot of hognose breeders
Mm-hmm.
that if you have a parent animal that was sent, that was hard to get started, that more than
Some of
likely
the
her offspring
Yeah.
are going to be as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And her
think
second,
yeah, we're still so close to like the not close, but still not as far as from the wild type, and from wild caught, that is still some bringing in some of that, feeding behaviors. One thing I started implementing too in my feedings is feeding quails, and they really enjoy eating quail.
quail, I didn't even
Mm-hmm.
think about that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then like button quails for the smaller stuff, since the button quails, I mean, yeah, the button quails are smaller, and I can feed them to like my by like 20-gram hog nose will take a button like a day old button quail.
Oh wow.
Hmm.
Okay. I've always wanted to have button quail, so maybe that gives me an excuse to
There you
get some
go.
button
Yeah,
quail.
there you go. Yeah. So Brian, to close off tonight, and I want to thank you for taking your time, especially in
Oh
this
man.
busy time, prepping for Tinley. Um, you know, what is the most anticipated project for next breeding season for the hognose and the ball pythons?
Oh man, probably for the hognose specifically, man, I don't know because I mean I'm largely breeding almost the same thing
Mm,
next year that I was this year.
okay.
So there's not anything super huge there. I've got shots at moonbeams, probably
Okay.
moonbeams. I mean,
Okay.
I've got a moonstone male
Mm-hmm.
that's a little over a year old. He's 58, 60 grams. He's big
Mm-hmm.
enough. And then I'm picking up at Tinley the Arctic Conda double het coral.
Okay.
So I could hit moonbeams. I could hit moonbeam albino. That
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. So that's probably the most anticipated thing there. Um, in the ball pythons, it's mostly puzzle pieces. It's not really any end goal.
Okay.
But I will have shots, long shots, triple het to triple het. But I'll have shots at hitting some uh, DG clown pod. I
Okay.
should have. I've got 4 females ready to go there, so that would be the triple. Some of the G-stripe clown stuff with the confusion gene in it, which I think is going to break up the pattern some. I mean, it's a combo that they kind of all look the same, and it's not what you would expect them to look like. But I haven't seen anything there made with the confusion yet, so I've got 4 females that should be ready in that project with a nice male that I hatched to put with them, and then making some of the DG Exanthic clown project out of them. I don't have any shots at hitting the triple, but I can hit DG Exanthic Het Clown and Exanthic Clown Het DG. So, I can hit the double visual heads uh, with some luck from the odds gods. I don't have any 50-50 shots there. It's more of a 1 in 16, but, you know,
Gotcha.
that's the big one. But I mean, honestly, the thing I'm the most excited about for this season is trying to get my first bull snake punch. That's
Okay.
you know
Cool.
that's not
Yeah.
that's not going to pay the house off. But I just can't wait to see one of those bull snakes in a lay box around some eggs because they're just. I'd like to hit some patternless, some patternless, hypo albino stuff or
Mm-hmm.
some patternless exanthic stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
those are pretty neat. I'm looking forward to having my first season with them.
Nice. You see, I just started dabbling into other species, so it's gonna be a while till I hatch other species. But I can just imagine that excitement to hatch that new species, especially something you've been wanting to work for a while.
Oh
You know.
man, these Sonoran gophers! I can't wait till they get to size. I love them too. I mean, they're just
Mm-hmm.
really cool. And then the Mexican pines, they're just pure wild types. Like there's no morph involved in that. It doesn't need it. I mean, it's such a beautiful. I mean, it's like I describe it on Morph Duck Market as like the ugly duckling that turns into the swan. But I mean, it comes out this little brown snake, and
Mm-hmm.
it turns into this bright orange with black saddles that's just absolutely gorgeous with white peppering on the scales and everything. To watch that transformation, I mean, one shed after another. It's like I almost hate selling one of my last 2 babies I have from that girl because
Yeah.
like I want to see that happen, over time. But I didn't hatch any females, and I would the only thing I would have kept would be maybe another female for
Females.
that project.
Yeah.
But I mean, they lay so many eggs. I did only get 3, but I didn't brumate. Like once
Mm-hmm.
I brumate with the size of my female now this year, I mean, it's very possible I'll get 30 eggs. So I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's 30, wild type Mexican pines that, that's a
Yeah.
lot of those to
And then
sell.
you can keep some of those females. Yeah. Once you have the higher rate of eggs, for
Oh
sure.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to keep one. That's one that I would like to put in a display tank. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's. I think it's. They're just beautiful. I mean, they
Mm-hmm.
really are, and they're so much calmer than most of the pets. The bull snakes are a little crazy, The gopher snakes are kind of crazy, but not quite as much. But the Mexican pines, these babies have never, I mean, even through popping and sexing and, all that stuff. And I've never had one of them strike at me, musk me.
Mm.
They don't even hiss. Like my bull
Mm.
snakes will, I've got one bull snake that terrifies my wife. You know what I mean? And it's all bluff. Like he can be
Yeah.
doing this, but man, he's puffed up and hissing so loud you can hear it all the way downstairs and thrashing around in his tub and everything. And then you reach down and pick him up and he's still just hissing and, looking at you with his mouth open, but you can reach up and just touch his head and he's still just
Yeah.
hissing. Like he's not going to bite you. He's just acting crazy.
Yeah.
He thinks he's doing something.
And I think that's another cool thing where we talk about like colubrids, where they give you that extra, keeping on your toes, give you that extra, display of their behavior. It's
Oh
really,
yeah.
really interesting to see.
Well, it is, and the interaction. Like the thing that
Mm-hmm.
I'm enjoying the most is the interaction that I have
Mm-hmm.
with them. Even though like I don't do a lot of just pleasure handling because I'm pretty busy with everything. It's kind of hard to. But if I come out of the upstairs going downstairs with a snake to hold and chill,
Yeah.
it's more than likely going to be one of my bull snakes because number one, I know my wife's going to scream, and that's kind of funny. But but it's just they're so powerful and they feel so cool, and
Mm-hmm.
it's the second largest North American species behind the indigo snake. So I mean they're just really cool, and they always put on that display. They've got so much personality. It's almost like they're looking through you when they look at you. I mean it's freaking neat, man.
That's cool, man. Well, Brian, I want to thank you again for your time,
Oh
for giving us your insight on, everything that's going on in your world and, maybe some, help somebody make the decision of starting to transition to other, bring other species into their collection, especially
yeah.
when it's, mainly ball python, because sometimes, I think it's maybe an intimidating factor or step to be able to say, okay, I'm going to dive into another species now and start all over. Right. Um, so I think you're really in a cool little journey into the other species, and definitely want to see what's gonna come the next 2 years, especially with the hognose, because from what I hear, you have some really really high end stuff, really powerful stuff coming up
Yeah,
in the
I
next two
have some
years.
stuff. I have some stuff I don't talk about a lot, but I'm
Yeah.
actually I'm really really, and I never did that with ball pythons, and I think
Mm-hmm.
that was one of the, I don't want to say mistakes I made, but it's
Mm-hmm.
probably one of the reasons why, I mean, I guess we got like 6,200 followers on Instagram, something like
Mm-hmm.
that. So I mean, we got a pretty good presence, but I
Mm-hmm.
know people who've produced half the snakes we have that have 15, 20,000, that kind of stuff, and I think a lot of that comes from I don't leave much to the imagination. You know, I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
don't mind sharing what I'm doing with anyone, but I'm keeping a couple of hard nosed projects pretty close to the cuff, just because I don't know if it's going to be special, but I want to see if it is,
I hear
because
that.
it's
Yeah.
it's I've got one trio that could be a new poly. I'm not sure, but I was lucky enough to twist John's arm and talk him out of some of them. So I'm
Mm.
looking forward to seeing that. He had several clutches pop out that they had almost like a plain head, like a patternless head, and the first like
Yeah.
third of their body had no pattern at all.
Mm-hmm.
And it was across three separate clutches from the pairings of half related animals. So, yeah, I've got a trio out of that. So I'm interested to see what pops out of that. It would be cool to, in my third or fourth or fifth season to be able to prove out something there. That would be neat. But, it's,
Yeah.
I don't know, man. They're just awesome. And I appreciate you having me on, Albert.
Oh man, anytime, like I said, I think once we met in Dallas and we talked a little bit, definitely I told you I wanted to get on, have you on the podcast and talk a little bit more about it. We had a quick question. And you were talking about Mexican pines, right?
Yeah.
I think somebody misheard. He said Mexican bull snakes. No, he said Mexican pines. So just to
Yeah, no,
clarify
Mexican
that.
pines. It's a northern Mexican pine. There's two different subvariants. There's Depi that are more of a central
Mm-hmm.
Mexican pine, and then the Depi Jani are the really orange ones that are from the montane regions of northern Mexico, between northern Mexico, Baja. We're right over in that area.
Okay.
That are just really really neat snakes.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Like I said, thanks again, Brian. We'll see you guys because we'll definitely have you back, especially once your hog nose production has cleared up. but pushed up more. Thank you everybody for joining us tonight, and catch us in the next 2 weeks. We'll see you guys on the next one.